This video is a compilation of my Ghost reviews that I have done for each album. It goes through Opus, Infestissumam, Meliora, Prequelle, 7 Inches of Satanic Panic, Impera, Skeletá, and the rest of the EPs at the end. You'll have to bear with the audio for the first 2. It was my first time making videos like this. As the videos go on, I got better at capturing the audio. I'll be doing Muse albums next, so if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and here we go. You will probably see over the course of these videos that I prefer a particular era of Ghost. The fact I've already made videos on Meshuggah and talked about my love of Gojira tells you that I'm someone who likes heavy music, but I come from a classical music background, so I have an appreciation for all kinds of good music. At least that's what I think. So this week we're going to start with Opus Eponymous, Ghost's first album. I'll be going through these in order, releasing one each week. So if you want to make sure you don't miss the next albums, because I'm sure your favourite, with all due respect to this album, probably isn't this one, even though I do really like this album, and it's one of my favourites and always has been since I've been listening to Ghost. So if you want to hear me talk about your favourite album, you're going to have to make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and that way you will see the video when I release it. So that just sounds like a sensible decision that has no vested interest in me promoting whatsoever. So, Opus Eponymous. This album is the shortest album. I think it's only about 40 minutes long, and that always makes it feel like a sweet treat. You can put it on, it doesn't last too long. It's very efficient. You don't feel like there's much filler, or at least I don't anyway. And one thing that's quite nice about this album is the fact that it's about one thing. There are some devil worshipy songs to get over what flavour of music and band Ghost is, but throughout this album there is a story being told about the coming birth of the Antichrist. And this is probably the best Ghost concept album that exists. It's hard to really accurately describe any of the Ghost albums as concept albums, but the concepts that they do have, Opus executes the best out of any one of these. So I won't be ranking the instrumentals because they're not really songs and there's not too much to say. So to briefly mention Deus Culpa, this is the opening to the album, and it's this reversed piano song, or organ. I've never actually reversed it to hear exactly what it is, but it has this slow burn to it and a very warm feel, and it does its job. It gets you into the album. So in 8th place, we have Genesis. It is a shame to have to put this last, but something has to go last, and unfortunately, it's Genesis. There would have been a time when I would not have put this last and would have put some of the other songs beneath it, but I now see more value in a lot of those songs, even the ones I didn't really like many years ago when I first listened to this. There are lots of things to like about Genesis. I like its triplet feel, the sort of 12/8 thing going on, and I like how it starts off with a synth and then gradually, as the instrumentation builds, it becomes more human, so it goes from digital, from synth, to ultimately an acoustic outro. It is quite epic and it has this galloping feel. Even though it isn't using a gallop, the triplets are what's giving us that feel. But it is ultimately not as grand as instrumentals that Ghost would go on to do, and doesn't offer nearly as much as any of these other songs do. Another thing to say about this album, which I completely forgot to mention, is that the production on the studio release is not great. I think a lot of the times the heavy sections sound too thin, and the vocals don't seem as present as they should do. You can really tell this was their first album because the production quality is quite a bit lower than the others. I can still hear each part perfectly fine, and individually they sound well recorded, but when put together it seems to not work as well as future albums would do. And I have found that the best way to listen to this album is by listening to it on a turntable with my limited edition Ice Blue record. And my turntable runs slightly quick, that's actually how I like it. So the tempo is slightly increased for all of these songs, and I can increase the bass in my preamp. At number 7, we have Stand By Him. So first of all, this song is groovy. I've never really been a huge fan of this song. I do like how groovy the riff is in the verse. I'm not so much of a fan of the carnal lust section. It's okay. It offers something slightly different, but it does have this weird feeling that we do it and then have to find an awkward way back into the song. The chorus is also fine, but
It's not very catchy in my opinion. It's one of the weaker choruses Ghost have come up with. This song feels like it was built around the verse riff because that is really good and the rest of it is just fine. Highlights of this song are that verse riff and the guitar solo at the end doing the vocal melody. The problem I have with this song is it just sounds like a normal average song from any other band, but at least it has a couple of things that are different enough about it to keep my interest. At number 6 we have Prime Mover. This song also has a cool verse riff. I like the triplet rhythm that the rhythm guitars are playing, and I like how it builds into its chorus as well. But the chorus never really feels like it's that big or that memorable. The standout part for this song is the Father Waiting in Tomb section. That's definitely the best bit of the song, and always what I'm looking forward to listening to whenever I hear this song again. Unfortunately, that is quite a short part of this song, and the rest of it is perfectly enjoyable but not particularly engaging, and the vocals at the end are quite funny as well. At number 5 we have Death Knell. Death Knell is a good song. There's interesting uses of samples like audio recordings in this song, so it uses a thunder sample at the start of the song and a bell sound as well throughout. That's quite unusual for Ghost. I can't think of many times they've used recordings like that in their music, and I can't help but feel like the use of a bell, I know it's called the Death Knell, but that has to be inspired by Metallica somehow, surely. I always think of For Whom the Bell Tolls whenever I hear this song. So this song has a lot more interesting arrangement stuff going on than the previous songs on this list. For example, in the second verse when it's just bass and vocals and then the guitars drop in to lead us into the chorus. That's a really cool, clever decision. And in that chorus after the second verse, when Tobias is singing the Beast of Evil line, he goes really high, and that's higher than I think I've ever heard Ghost before. I wish we had more of that kind of vocal delivery. It's one of those weird things where I think the vocals were probably most experimental in the first record. I mean, I don't know how difficult it is for Tobias to sing through that mask. It's probably a bit easier now that he doesn't have one. I'm not sure what limitation that was adding particularly, but I think he just chose not to sing in this register, which is a real shame because it's really cool when he does. The guitar solo is a bit repetitive and it is the same melody just being played over and over again, but it's really trying to accentuate the rhythm and the accents, so that rhythm section is heavy at least. Again, minor nitpicked for the song, the rest of it is great. There are some funny things lyrically, like spelling out Satan is quite funny. It's just so overt, all of the messaging, it's so obvious. Ghost would go on to become quite a subtle band with the way that they criticise religion and highlight their worship to the devil, but in this album it's just not subtle at all, which I find quite funny. And I wish actually that they would preserve this tongue-in-cheekness about the devil worshipping lyrics, because as we go on, especially to more recent records, and I'll talk about this when we get there, but it is quite difficult sometimes to distinguish Ghost from any other Christian music. At number 4 we have Satan Prayer. I used to really not engage with this song and not like it very much, but now I think it's a real standout on this album. There are so many parts of this song which are really great. The opening riff is very different to anything else that we've heard so far. So by the time we make it to this album, it's very different to Ritual, it's very different to Elizabeth, it's very different to Conclave con Dio. So it's immediately getting our attention in that way. The verse riff is cool and groovy. Structurally, it's a little bit different as well. It has this building section, which you initially would assume to be the chorus, but actually the chorus is revealed to be something different later in the song. So it's got a lot of variety in its structure. But the real standout for this song is the guitar solo. The solo starts off dark and moody, and then it opens up to become much brighter. This is a bit similar to how Faith approaches its two guitar solos. The first one is quite dark and the second one is a lot more open and harmonized and brighter in tone. So it's cool to see Ghost using that same idea here earlier on. In fact, the brighter part of this guitar solo in Satan Prayer is a great moment from this album and actually one of my favorite moments in all of Ghost's discography. It is quite strange how the song ends with this synth coming in, but I don't mind it. It's a bit weird. I do think it's a bit out of place, but it kind of feeds into the campiness of the album, so maybe it does work. At number 3, we have Conclave con Dio. So first of all, we need to address the fact that this song was not included in the Right Here, Right Now live album release, even though it was played. And that really frustrates me because this song is really good. And actually, for a lot of people who've been recommended Ghost and listened to it from the first album, this is the first song they've heard from Ghost. This is like the beginning of the journey. So it's quite significant in that way. I'm pretty sure this was the first song from Ghost I'd actually heard because Ghost was recommended to me by friends, so I listened to the first album and this was the first song I'd ever heard from Ghost. And there's lots to like about it. I love that it's in triplets, so it has this 12/8 time signature feel going on. It has some moments where the bass really is allowed to shine. It has a really nice melodic guitar solo, and I love when the title of the track is being sung. It's sung by these different vocals with different harmonies in there and different voices. This is one of my favourite stylistic things about Ghost when they decide to do it. When they decide to have choruses, as in choral sections, more than one singer, like a choir, and especially a lower register choir, like a deeper tenor or countertenor choir, I think it lends so much authenticity and credibility to their sound as a Satanic band. Historically, that musical timbre has been used to represent religion in many different ways, and so it's really clever to use that here. If you're representing an anti-Catholic church, a demonic Catholic church, then you should have your own hymns, and they should be sang by choruses of people. It was really smart to open the album with this, and I love it when Ghost do it in the future as well. And there is this really cool part as well when the guitars get quite low, and Tobias is doing the whisper vocals as well to indicate secrecy, and all of these things that feed into what you traditionally associate with the devil. This is, in my opinion, what Ghost do best when they're representing the devil through their music. And they do it most effectively in this way. I know it can be done, and they have done it well through more accessible music and more pop sounding songs, but songs like this are what I listen to Ghost for. This is what they provide that other bands simply don't. So at number 2, we have Ritual. So Ritual offers us the best of both worlds. It provides us with a dancey, conventional song. It starts off with a bright tone, a bright guitar tone, and it sounds like it's going to be maybe like a glam rock song or a happy rock song, and then it immediately stops and brings us down to these distorted guitars, something that we more traditionally associate with metal, and then gets us going with the main riff of the song. And this main riff is very good. It does sound very Symphony of Destruction, which is good because I like Megadeth and I like Symphony of Destruction, but the vocals are, well, I wouldn't say better because I love Dave Mustaine, but Tobias's vocals are definitely different enough and more pleasant, I think we could say. But even though Tobias is bringing us these pleasant vocals, he's not afraid to get into some quite darker vocals. For example, in the heavier section, when we are hitting the zeros and the ones and reciting the Lord's Prayer, but a variation of it to worship Satan instead, Tobias is giving us a much different vocal performance. And there's so much variety in this song. We have these bright moments and we have these dark moments and then these really dark moments. And I love how when we come out of this section, we have this really melodic guitar solo. It's a really great solo. And this guitar returns at the end of the last chorus to send us out, kind of like how it brought us in as well. This is very similar structurally to Stand By Him. Ritual is a very dancey song. This is, in my opinion, the catchiest chorus that they came up with for this album. And you can't help but listen to Ritual without wanting to dance to that chorus. You just can't help yourself. This is definitely a classic song for the band, and a live performance would not be complete without a Ritual performance. Okay, and at number 1, as you may have worked out by now, is Elizabeth. Now this may seem like a bit of an unusual choice to some people, and I will admit that the studio version of this song is not my favourite version. In fact, I think it's inferior to Ritual, I think it's inferior to Satan Prayer, I think it's inferior to lots of the songs on this album. But that is because for some reason, when they recorded Elizabeth, they recorded it at a much slower tempo than the performance that they had on the demo. So weirdly, the demo version of Elizabeth is better than the studio version. But where this song really shines is in a live context. If you speed this song up and record a heavier live rig, this song is by far the best song on this album. And that is how I've been listening to this song for a while, so that's why it's at the top. This song has the best main riff. The downbeats are so accentuated by it. It is the most headbangable song in the album. And the chorus is catchy. It's not as catchy as Ritual, but it is still very catchy. I love it, and it's always stuck in my head. But my favourite part of this song is the solo. So we play a really long extended solo, and underneath is the main riff, which is providing us with a rhythm to support that solo. And these two things together are just really great. This solo is by far the best one in the album. And actually, when you listen to Elizabeth and think of its structure, it is a structure that Ghost fell away from. They don't write songs in the way that they wrote Elizabeth anymore. Nowadays, Ghost feel very optimized in their songwriting. And actually what this allows us to do is it just gives the song space. it gives it some time to breathe and to explore some complicated ideas. It's similar to what happens in the solo in Satan Prayer, and I wish that they still did that, because to the extent that they do still do that, it feels like dispensable improvisation, and actually keeping it melodic and rooted in the main riff underneath, and it still feels like it's within the song, it's part of it, it's a natural extension of the song and still confined within the structure, but it's a development, it's an exploration within that framework. That's what makes the solo feel like it really fits. It's the right combination of technique and melodic, and that's why Elizabeth is my favourite on this album. So that's Opus Eponymous. Let me know your thoughts below. Did you agree? Did you disagree? What's your ranking of this album? Today we're doing Infestissumam, the second album by Ghost. I've already ranked and reviewed Opus Eponymous, so check out that video if you would like. Today we're going to be doing something slightly different in terms of the way we approach this album. Last time I went through all of the tracks, starting from my least favourite and ending up with my favourite. This time I'm going to be going through the song in order of the album and describing things that I like, things that I don't like, and then I will reveal my ranking, my order from least favourite to favourite at the end. You should be able to get a good idea of which ones I like more than others, but it just makes sense for this album to go through it chronologically, especially following on from my Opus review. Overall, this album is much better than Opus Eponymous. I never used to think that. I used to think that Opus was better and had more songs that you would want to listen to, and that whilst this album was a step up production-wise, it didn't have many songs that were really standouts. And my opinion, especially in the face of recent Ghost releases, has completely changed on that now. Infestissumam is now one of my favourites from Ghost. I again think of it as a treat, much like Opus. It's not very long, only 47 minutes in length. Production-wise, as I've said, the quality is much higher in this album, and there's also a lot more interesting arrangements, textures, timbres, instruments coming in that we never had in the last album. And the songwriting is more progressive, which is always welcome. It is quite a unique time for Ghost in these first two albums. I'll get into some of the melody choices to do with the vocals, but there is a real focus on ambience, environment, the texture of the sound to build your immersion. This album is much more transporting than the original. The original sounds like you're listening to a first album. It sounds like you're listening to a group of people make music about a certain topic. This album has a much richer soundscape, and that soundscape isn't really replicated in any of their future releases. Ghost albums tend to have their own identity sonically for each album, and this is the last album where it feels like we are in touch with what we could call Ghost's roots. The satanic imagery and lyrics are really at their strongest here, and much like in Opus, we have a narrative being strung across these songs. So whereas Opus was about bringing the Antichrist into existence, Infestissumam is about what happens now that the Antichrist has been born and brought into the world. Now that the devil is among us, how will society and men change? This album is quite similar to Opus in many ways, but is also a foil to that album. There's a similar number of songs, and the album is structured rather similarly, certainly in the opening where we have an instrumental track. When we think back to Opus and we think of Deus Culpa, that is this very warm and slow, reversed piano, ambiguous track. You're not really supposed to know what to make of it, but what it does do is it slowly hypnotizes you into the soundscape. Infestissumam is completely different. It is the polar opposite. It is really cool and my favorite introduction that Ghost have done. I mentioned in the previous review about how I love the choral chanting and how choruses and choirs have been used throughout history in the context of religion. It gives you this feeling that there is a congregation singing this. This is not just a band writing songs about the Antichrist. This is a movement. It is a collective thought. And these people are gathered here to worship this. It's my favourite texture that Ghost bring into their music. And I love that we open the album with that lower register, deeper choral chanting as if we're summoning something from underground.
And this time, this chorus, this choir is blended with the guitars, and the guitars are playing these melodies. The drums have come in and we're playing the snare on each downbeat, which is something that happens quite a lot in this album, stylistically quite different from the first. That is a common way in the percussion that we build tension and escalate in this album, and it is the perfect transition into Per aspera ad inferi. Using Latin is something that we did do in Opus. We did it in Conclavi con Dio, which I didn't really mention, but the use of Latin functions as a world-building technique, essentially. If Ghost and Papa Emeritus is representing a satanic church, an opposite to the Catholic Church, then the use of Latin is presenting the band as a foil to the Catholic Church, who we know use Latin, write in it, read in it, speak in it in the Vatican. So it's also lending credibility to the band that they know what they're talking about when they are writing these songs. So the first thing that strikes me is something very similar that struck me in Opus, which is that the verse is much more full instrumentally than anything from that previous album. We have a keyboard, we have an organ, and we have a full band all playing together, and it feels really epic, especially with any choral chanting that we happen to have in the back. I really do like this song and the snare pattern during the chorus. It doesn't feel like a song, much like, Stand By Him or the more conventional Ghost songs sound like songs. It feels like an extension of Infestissumam, that opening track. It feels like we are still tone setting for this album. And as far as it achieves that job, it achieves it really successfully. The next song is Secular Haze, and this is a really cool song. It always kind of throws me off guard when I first listen to the song because it's not exactly how I remember it. And when I first start listening, I'm like, ooh, this doesn't sound quite as good as I remember. Maybe this is actually kind of a mid-track. But as it progresses, it always wins me over, and by the end I'm like, actually, Secular Haze is definitely a very good song. The 6/8 gives it a creepy circus vibe, which I love, and the organ, the keyboard is fulfilling that role as well. I like that we refer to Satan as a fog weaver. That's a really interesting name that I haven't heard before. And Secular Haze is a really clever title. The guitar solos in this are also interesting. There's a cool tremolo section in it, which we certainly hadn't heard before in the first album. So by this point, we've developed the style of drum playing, and we've also developed the style of the guitar solos. They have a very different style in this album. I think that the style of guitar solo that Ghost would go on to be known for is this combination of the technical elements we hear start to emerge in Infestissumam and also the melodic solos we heard in Opus, Satan Prayer being a very good example of that. The next song is Gigolo Ha Megiddo. From memory, I never have an easy time from memory trying to remember how this song goes, but whenever I hear it, it is recognisable. And it has a really groovy bass line, which is something that we never heard before. So that's a new addition to this album. Much groovier than anything before. Again, the guitar solo in this song is really good and it is much more technical. The most memorable thing about this song are the explicitly sexual lyrics. They are kind of silly, but also they are heavily linked to satanic material, and it is also in keeping with that theme of how is the world starting to change now that the Antichrist is born. So when you consider it in juxtaposition to the material heard in Opus, it serves a purpose. The next song is Goulet Zombie Queen. So this song is really different. Even when I think of Ghost's full discography, this still is a really black sheep song. It's very unusual. The song has two sections, Goulet and Zombie Queen. And the fact that it's divided into two sections is a much more progressive choice than anything Ghost have tried so far. I used to always wonder if the song was too long, but I've come to the conclusion that it's not, and it's actually perfectly paced. The song is providing you throughout with something different. There's this slower, relaxing intro. There's the change of gear into the faster section. There is a new groove in the faster verse. There is a new epic climbing chorus. There are some instrumental sections for some fills. We have a deep register choir section for the Zombie Queen chants. We finish with a big epic rendition of the chorus at the end, and we have an instrumental outro that is extended following the melody of the chorus until we end the song. I wish Ghost still made songs that were as experimental as this. I guess the closest thing recently would be Umbra, but that just kind of sounds like a jam, like an improvisational song. It's most like Respite on the Spitalfields if you were to draw a direct comparison, but even today this song is very unusual for them and I appreciate it a lot. The next song is Year Zero. The song has such a dark tone to it. This is definitely one of my favourite Ghost songs. In fact, if you were to ask me to distill Ghost's sound into one song to show someone, I'd probably pick this. Or at least this is what I want Ghost to sound like. Like, you could pick more recent, bigger songs to get across how they sound across their full discography, but this is how I want them to sound. I feel like Year Zero is the gold dust in these first two albums. Everything has been building up to them being able to make this song. And this is why I listen to Ghost. I listen to Ghost because it is only them who can pull off a song like this. I love choral chanting, so of course I love the opening choral chants to this song. I love using the different names of the demons. Again, I love this world building that they are trying very hard to incorporate into their songwriting. It sounds so strange to describe a band as world building within their songs, but that is strangely what Ghost do in these albums. They are building up a lore and a mystery and a story around their characters and around their albums and songs. It's very unusual and another reason to listen to them and what makes them so different. And the chorus is exactly the kind of on-the-nose messaging that I want from a campy, overtly satanic band. I mean, when your chorus is literally Hail Satan, you don't need to do any more. Like, you're only going to be able to make that song once, and they really did it perfectly. The next song is Body and Blood. This is a very underrated song. I love the groove on this song, and the chorus is really catchy. It's probably one of the most catchy choruses Ghost have ever come up with. I definitely find myself humming it in my head a lot of the time. I can see why you would think it's repetitive though. Personally, I really like the song and the chorus, so I don't mind that it is, but if it isn't working for you, I can see how this song could be too long. The next song is Idolatrine. This has a really cool triplet intro that I like, and I think the song has a cool groove. It also has quite a hooky vocal melody. You have to admit that the vocal melody is quite catchy. I don't think the chorus is catchy, but that melody is. I do think the Suffer Little Children part is a bit repetitive, but it's okay. And we're using a biblical line as well and trying to invert the meaning of it, so I appreciate that as well. I have no idea what Idolatrine is actually about though. I've tried to work it out and I still don't really know, so if anyone knows what Idolatrine's about, you can let me know. The next song is Depth of Satan's Eyes. This has some good things in it. It has a very cool chorus. I think that the chorus is dark and catchy at the same time. I like the mini guitar solo section with the higher vocals than we've heard before, but the actual guitar solo is the weakest on the album. I mentioned earlier about how the vocal melody choices are intentionally creepy, and you really get that sense in this song. This song has very strange choices for the vocal melody. They seem quite dissonant, actually, and not what you would initially predict. I think that is intentional, and it's supposed to sound creepy. It's not supposed to sound like a happy or epic song. This is supposed to be a devil-worshipping song. It's just interesting to point out because they do abandon that past a certain point in their discography. And this is one of those songs that uses the snare to accentuate each downbeat to escalate again. It does that at the end, which I like. I think that's a cool sound. And the final track is Monstrance Clock. I do like this song. I think it has a grand scale. It is a bit too repetitive for me, but there is something that I like about it, which is this song feels like for the first time the band is directly calling out to the listener. So before, it sounds like a band who is talking about their thoughts and who they're worshipping and why and what they're doing and what they do and don't like. But in this song, it feels like they are deliberately calling out to you to come together as one. It feels like they're trying to communicate with their fan base. Ghost have written in the third person quite a lot, and in this song, it feels like they're more directly referencing the second person, which is something they will go on to do more in some of their future songs, like Cerise. So when the choir comes in this song, it sounds, like I said before, like a congregation coming together to sing this song, and this no longer feels like a band who's just starting out. It gives the sense that the band has found an audience. And I think it's a really fitting end to this album, and also clearly marks the point where the band would start to become a lot more famous. They also played this as the closing track when I saw Ghost live, and so that feeling that I've just explained was definitely validated in that experience. Time for the ranking. Oh, not time for the ranking actually. There is another track that's sort of on this album, but not really, called La Mantra Mori. and I thought I might as well mention it because I really don't like that song, if you can even call it a song. I know it's a mantra, and so it just repeats, and that's the point, but that doesn't excuse it from being completely unlistenable and really, really, really boring. So I just thought I'd get that out there. Anyway, time for the ranking now. At number 10, if we must include it, we have La Mantra Mori. Obviously, it's not a song. And at number 9, we have Into the Depth of Satan's Eyes. At number 8, we have Idolatrine. At number 7, we have Gigolo Ha Megiddo. At number 6, we have Monstrance Clock. And above Monstrance Clock at number 5 is Body and Blood. At number 4, I've put Secular Haze. And for the top 3, third place is the opening tracks, Infestissumam and Per Espera ad Inferi, because I think of those as one connected piece. Certainly if you listen to the record, they play that way. At number 2, there is Goulet and Zombie Queen. And at number 1, there is Year Zero, which is not a surprise. So let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know your rankings below. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And stay tuned for next week's rank and review of Meliora. So before we get into the main tracks, the interludes are Spurxenat and Devil Church. Spurxenat is a very cool little interlude. The main melody is the outro from Rats, which we are yet to cover, as it's on the next album. And that's a nice bit of foreshadowing, I guess. I don't know if it was the plan to always use that as an outro in a future song, but when you come up with an idea that good, like that melody is so dissonant, then you've got to make sure to use it properly, which they definitely do, and we'll get to that when we do Prequelle next week. Time signature wise, it is also quite unusual. I did a transcription of it on the second channel a long time ago when I was planning to do an orchestral version of Rats. And yeah, just some really weird things going on there with starting a new phrase on the last note of the previous phrase. So instead of playing the last note and then playing the next note, they seem to like overlap, which means time signature wise, weird things are going on. But a very welcome harp interlude on the album. Leads very nicely into He Is. And as for Devil Church, I always remember Devil Church as an organ interlude, a bit like Deus Culpa, but it's very different to that. In fact, I always forget it has a band section when the band get brought in, making it sound less like Deus Culpa and more like Infestissumam, or really a combination of those two, but also a very fitting bridge from Majesty into Absolution. Anyway, on with the actual songs now. At 8th place, we have Deus in Absentia. Now, this is not a bad song, because no song on this album is bad. All of them are good because there is just a confidence about this album overall, which is much greater than anything we saw in Opus or Infestissumam. I don't really know how to explain the confidence, but it's definitely present. This is still a 40-minute album, it's still very short, but it feels like the songwriting is much more optimized and we cram a lot more into these 40 minutes than we did in Infestissumam, for example, where some of those tracks might feel a little bit bloated or a little bit long. Even though there's less songs in this album, I feel like we do a lot more in each of those songs compared to the average song on Infestissumam or Opus for that matter. And that confidence and boldness is definitely present in this song. Deus in Absentia is going for something really specific, and in doing that, it means it's my least favourite on the album, just because this is not for me. I don't really vibe with the outro, the funeral pyre chorus that they continue to sing. I'm also not a huge fan of the structure of the song. I don't really like how there's a ticking of a clock and how jaunty the verse idea is, with the stabs with the piano and the guitar all playing at the same time. That doesn't really work that well for me. The elements I do like about this song are more to do with the instrumental texture. I like the piano lines that are being played, and I like what sound like guitar ad-libs throughout. I think texturally the song is built up very nicely, and I like the vocal delivery on this song as well. But coming back to the structure idea, once we finish the second chorus, I think it is, there is then this bridge section with a guitar solo or a couple of guitar solos, and then we come back to the verse and the chorus, and then we have the funeral pyre outro, and then there's the choral singing tacked on at the end. And I'm not sure that all of these things work together as well as they do in other songs on this album. I don't dislike any of it, it just doesn't really work for me. But I know people really like that song, so sorry in advance to those people who really like Deus in Absentia. Okay, at 7th place, I'm smiling even saying it because I can just tell that people aren't going to be happy with it. But at 7th place is Mummy Dust. Again, Mummy Dust is a good song. I've seen Ghost live. I know that this song, live especially, has a much different feel than it does in the studio version. I like how heavy and dark the main riff is. I like all of that. And I love the guitar solo for that same reason. And the tone of the guitars in this song is just great. I never used to like how it was really heavy and then would sort of have these very bright, explosive bursts. But that's grown on me over time. I do always think, though, it sounds a bit like a Mario Kart song or something, like Ghost Valley. I know it probably doesn't. I don't know if anyone else will make that connection, so let me know in the comments if you do. But there is a goofiness about it that I can't really shift when I listen to the song. And I think its simplicity works against it on this album. I just think there's so much more on offer in other songs. At number 6, we have Majesty. Now, just directly comparing Majesty to Mummy Dust, this feels a lot more full. It has a much more full sound that I would expect from this album and that we even heard in Deus in Absentia. The highlight of this song is definitely the verse riff. The verse riff is great. And when I saw Ghost live, they also did play this song, which was a very welcome surprise. They had Tobias floating in a big purple dress because it was on the Skeletor, and that was really cool. The King Kong single art for this is also very funny. I like that a lot. And the guitar solo is just incredible in this song. And as we go into that solo as well, from the chorus, there is this sort of bridging section where Tobias sings You, and you have these backing vocals as well. And that's very much like how you would expect from Ghost that first time. And then in the second time, it's a lot more dissonant with the R's. And I'd completely forgotten that that was part of this song. It's a really great effect. I really wish that Ghost would use that more. The solo follows a structure that I've already mentioned in previous reviews, but I've come to expect from Ghost, which is that it has a very dark, melodic beginning, and then when it develops its ideas, it goes into major or into a brighter tone, and that's exactly what this song does as well. But the solo is really great. And as the song ends as well, we hear the title being sung, and that's a really cool moment, completely different from the rest of the song to end it. The only thing that kind of lets this song down for me, that I don't like it, is the chorus. So the first half of the chorus is fine because it's all like as you would expect. And then the second half of the chorus, the vocals are sung on the offbeat, and that always really throws me. And I'm like, why did you do that? I don't really know why that was done. I guess it makes it sound a bit different, but it just sort of throws me off, like the all beauty lies within part. It's like we do it and we do it on the offbeat and then have to find an awkward way back into the original groove. And I just don't like it. It feels like an interruption rather than a cool deviation. And that's the only thing that lets the song down, because everything else about the song is excellent. And that's why it's up here. That's why it's above Mummy Dust. That's why it's its 6th place. But it can't go higher than that because none of the rest of the songs have a part of the song which actually irks me every time I hear it. And not even Mummy Dust has that. Okay, and at 5th place, we have Spirit, the opening track. This is really cool for loads of reasons. The first most obvious one is the spooky atmosphere that is established by the organ. So we're using like these keyboard organs a lot more now in this album, and something that I didn't mention in the Majesty part was that parts of the guitar solo were doubled by the keyboard, and that's really cool. Not something we'd actually heard from those previous 2 albums. That's something new that's established in this album and in this song. Now, when I say it's much spookier, it's much more cartoonishly spookier, much more overtly. It's much less gothic than the opening of Infestissumam with that choir. And I would be expecting something more gothic from Ghost to open their album, but instead we have this overtly cartoonish spookiness that is much more similar to Scooby-Doo than it is to previous Ghost albums. And that's fine, because I don't actually have a problem with that. Ghost are quite a campy band. There is a campiness to this album. You can still hear the choir, but it's buried underneath that synth. Our priority is clearly with that synth establishing the spooky cartoonish tone. And Scooby-Doo is often a insult levied at Ghost to their sound. Like, Ghosts sound like Scooby-Doo, it sounds rubbish, it's not metal. I think it really works for them, and I've got no problem with it at all. And I liked it when they lent into it as well in the future with the Mary on a Cross music video. I mean, that's basically Scooby-Doo style animation, so that's all very fine by me. But the next most obvious thing after that synth is the groove of the song. So it's 4/4, and when those drums come in, it's being played in 4/4, but it's subdivided into a group of 6 and then a group of 2. So we play this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have these 2 quick beats, 1, 2, to bring us back into the original groove, 6 and 2. This makes up 8 and therefore 2 bars of 4/4. So we do our 2 bars and we do the 2 bars again, but there comes a point where we actually cut out that extra group of 2 and just have a group of 6. So now we're playing in 6/4, and we're playing up to 6 and then up to 6 again, and then we go into triplets, but the triplet pattern repeats every 8 downbeats. So instead of triplets in 6/4, it's triplets in 4/4. So we're going 4/4, 6/4, and then triplets in 4/4, which is essentially 12/8, where the dotted crotchet is equal to the crotchet value of 4/4. I don't know if that made any sense over audio, but those who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. If you're unsure, just try counting it, it's really cool. And there are various parts of this song where the synth comes back, and the synth reminds me very heavily of Danny Elfman's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The main theme to that movie has a synth that's very similar, doing little ad-libs and runs in the background. And in the chorus, we keep up the triplet feel. I don't know if we've heard backing vocals before in Opus, or I think we have in Infestissumam, but this was the first time that I really noticed it, at least. We also had the choir return to the chorus to give it a different texture. The solo has some unique properties so far. The first one is that it's quite long, and it has a development from a minor moody idea into a major section, which, as we've mentioned, is starting to become a formula for Ghost in the way that they write their solos, which is really cool. And as we mentioned before, the solo is being doubled by the synth, which was completely new at this point. And the way the song ends is really cool as well, because the vocals hit this high note and it blends into the rest of the instruments, which builds us up into the next song. So a really thoughtful transition there in the album. At number 4, we have He Is. Now, this song made me realise just how clear each instrument really is in the Meliora mix. Infestissumam is a big step up production-wise from Opus, but if I think about a song like Body and Blood, they all sound like, I'm going to make up some terms here, band playing together type songs. But in He Is, there's an acoustic guitar part, a bass line, a piano line in the background. Piano is also a new instrument for Ghost showing up in this album. Everything feels like it's doing something unique and different to serve the song. This interweaving builds up a texture, it builds up the soundscape, as opposed to building a wall of sound through doubling or having the band all play a similar thing together. It's a different approach to the songwriting, and the melodies are so much more thoughtful, it feels like, than before. And it made me think for the first time, it really wants to make you know more about who the songwriter is and who the vocalist is. It's very easy for us to look back at albums like this with what we know about the band today and go, oh, that's very clever that Tobias wrote that. But this was an anonymous band at the time. And this song just made me realise you would really want to know who those people are or more about the creatives behind this band, because clearly so much thought has gone into it and we know nothing about these people. So it was no surprise really that the hype around Ghost's anonymity started to build around this time as well. This solo has harmonised leads, which is also brand new for Ghost at the time. This is something that Meliora has that the other 2 albums simply don't have. They don't have these solos that are harmonised in thirds. And another thing that's quite interesting about this song is the way that if you weren't going to listen to the lyrics and you were just going to listen to the song in terms of texture and maybe like the He Is in the chorus, you'd be forgiven for thinking this was a Christian song. Like, one of the elements of the devil is deception. And you just get the sense that if you were to play this amongst Christian people, that quite a few of them probably wouldn't pick up on what the lyrics in the verse are saying and would just be like, oh, this is a nice song, presumably about God, when it's not about God at all. And I might be wrong on this, but the music video, I believe, is making reference to a cult leader who had a congregation of people and then they all drank this Kool-Aid or lemonade or something, and that unfortunately killed all of those people. I believe that it's making a reference to that. But if it isn't, then it certainly could be. That's a valid interpretation. So it just feels that the criticisms of religion or organised Christianity are a lot stronger in this album, or bolder even, linking in with the boldness of the album and the songwriting and the ideas. One last thing to mention about the song, it's probably one of the most obvious ones, But this is a very pretty song, and it's something that Ghost actually, by this point, hadn't really done. They'd had quite heavy songs, they'd had songs that were more poppy or more mainstream, but having a acoustic ballad like this was completely new for them, and it still stands quite apart from the rest of the Ghost discography. It's definitely a showcase of their songwriting chops, and the fact that they are capable of a lot more than just metal songs with heavy riffs. And at third place, we have Absolution. This song is really great. The main riff is chromatic and really heavy. It has this driving energy, and the chugging is so good. The piano in the chorus really makes this song. You've got the really heavy verse and then a bright piano sound in the chorus, which really elevates it. And the vocals are doing this as well, but they're providing that contrast between the two sections of the song. So when you launch back into the verse with the main riff, you really feel the heaviness. It really gives it impact. This song has the scale and the grandiosity and epicness that I would expect from a Ghost song. Every Ghost album needs a song with this size. And I think the solo in this is still to this day one of the best Ghost solos. It's, in my opinion, the most technical one, certainly that they've written by this point, and probably that they've ever written. It's really long, it starts off dark and brooding, but again, develops into a brighter sound. And there's a really cool tapping part of the solo, which is quite uncommon for Ghost at the time. And it's just got everything. It's got this enormous chorus that you can sing. It's an anthemic song. There is a reason that Ghost used this song as the promotional single for Right Here, Right Now. It's because it is a giant song and it's got a great anthemic singable chorus. I would go so far as to call it a Ghost classic. It should be at every Ghost live performance. At second place, we have From the Pinnacle to the Pit. This is still one of the coolest songs that Ghost have ever done. The opening with the bass line and the bass tone is unbelievable. Definitely the heaviest bass tone that Ghost have ever managed to come up with. And sticking it front and center of this song is so welcome. It kind of feels like the mission statement of this song is, we've come up with this really cool bass line, and that's what we're going to play throughout the whole song, or as much of the song as we can, and the guitars are just going to double this bass line because it's such a good idea, and they're only going to deviate for short periods of time before they come back to doubling the bass line. The guitar tone is really interesting on this as well, because it sounds the most like a synth than any of the guitar tones that we've heard so far. So you can't really tell if it's the guitar or the synth playing that, for example, the opening lead line is when the song begins. But I do love that guitar tone. I love the bass tone, and I love the guitar solos as well. Structurally, this song is unusual, but I actually really quite like the structure. You don't really find out what the chorus is until quite a bit later. I would say that the chorus is you're cast off from the heavens to the ground section, but we don't hear that until quite a bit later. Instead, what we hear is we hear the verse riff, which is that bass line, and then we hear a development where we're jumping up and down, da-ga-da-ga-da-da, and that part always mirrors to me the title of the song, Pinnacle to the Pit. We're going from heaven, from a high point, from a high note down to a low note, and we're jumping on, oscillating between those two. But that's a really heavy development on that already really heavy verse riff. And because we play that a couple of times, you might think that that's the chorus, but then it's revealed to us later that it probably isn't. And another standout of this song is the drumming. So especially in that verse, the drums are keeping a constant hit on the ride cymbal. So we have a snare backbeat, we have a kick drum, and we have the ride cymbal being played constantly. And you would think that if you're a drummer, that's taking up all of your hands, but actually we have an additional line, another voice from the drums, which is the hi-hat being opened and closed, being controlled by the left hand, the snare hand, and the other foot. So it's like we're playing one more voice line on the drums than you would expect. Really clever, really cool drumming. And I love when the drumming switches up and hits the crash cymbals. That really makes that moment, that development of the verse riff feel a lot heavier. This song has a really clever title, it's got really clever lyrics. I love the Latin lyrics as well. This song is about Satan and is a devil worshipping song, much like, Absolution is and He is and Majesty. And all of these things have something in common where it's a lot less obvious that it's about Satan than Year Zero, for example, where the words Hail Satan are literally used. I feel like you can enjoy this song without actually putting two and two together and working out what the song is actually about, which is probably why this album has such a breakout appeal. Not saying that it really turns many people off, but it doesn't come across hokey or over the top. It just comes across like a really good song, and then you work out what it's about later. Whereas in those earlier albums, Dead Human Sacrifice, Hail Satan, Body and Blood, a song called Satan Prayer, the emphasis was on getting across what the band is about and what the themes are. Whereas Ghost feel like they've proven that now, and they're just making really tight, succinct songs. And the focus has shifted, and that's probably why this album broke out so heavily for them. But speaking of songs that broke out for Ghost, that leaves us with the number one spot on the album, which is Cerise. This is probably the best Ghost song. It is always hard to pick a favourite because often my favourites change depending on how I'm feeling, but this is eternally a good Ghost song. There is a reason that they won the Emmy for this, and it's just because it's an undeniably good song. The opening riff starts off with this acoustic part, and we build up the metal elements, the electric guitar, the drums, as the song progresses. And we keep playing this riff over and over again. This riff is a really dissonant riff, but the more you play it, the more used to that dissonance you become. And that dissonance doesn't really indicate where the song is going at any time. So we're sort of left rising and falling, and we don't know where we're going to go. We just know that we're increasing in drama and tension because the part is being played louder, and it's being harmonized, and it's being doubled by different instruments. It's building us up and up until we hit the main riff. And it's just the heaviest riff that Ghost have ever come up with. It's just undeniably brilliant. And it's made so much heavier by the use of a timpani or a heavy concert bass drum, I think it really is. Just playing that at the start of each measure. It's a heaviness that we have not heard from Ghost prior. This is the heaviest sound that they have come up with. And I think it's fair to say the heaviest sound that they achieved throughout their whole discography. I don't think they've gotten heavier than this. Like maybe the Rats outro or Faith, but I don't think so. In terms of the scale of this, the size of the sound, it doesn't get bigger than Cerise. And this has some of the most clever lyrics about religion that Ghost have ever written as well. One of the lyrics that always stands out to me is, "I know your soul is not tainted even though you've been told so." Directly confronting a religious believer with the fact that the people who are supposed to be looking after them and guiding them in organised Christianity are telling these people they've got original sin, their soul is tainted, and flipping that on its head and saying, well, Satanism is actually the religion, the organisation that is going to tell you that you're intrinsically valuable and not intrinsically sinful or wrong. Just a really, really clever lyric. I should probably clarify, I'm not a devil worshipper myself. I am an atheist, which is why none of this stuff troubles me. Not that it should trouble a Christian who's confident in their beliefs, obviously, but I just think if your aim is to mock religion, like Ghost is trying to do, then that's a really effective way of doing it. It's super clever songwriting, and you just don't hear that kind of stuff outside of Ghost. A really unique draw for this band, regardless of if you believe in Satan or think that they're actual devil worshippers themselves. So that's the album. There are two more songs I'd like to talk about from the Popestar EP, or at least the deluxe version of this album, and those are Zenith and Square Hammer. I don't really want to talk about the covers. I can take or leave the covers. I've got them ranked in a YouTube short if you really want to know what my thoughts are. But the two original songs included as part of this album, we're going to talk about. So, first off, we're going to talk about Zenith, which is the hidden track on this album, which was only available on the vinyl release of one of these versions of the album. If you got the deluxe version on record, then you had this on there. And the only way to listen to it for a long time, I remember on YouTube to do this, was there was a guy who had uploaded an audio recording of this song from his luminescent green vinyl. And it wasn't until Ghost released the 13 Commandments, I think, that this song became digitally available, so now everyone can hear it. But this has always been a favourite of mine. The piano is really prominent in this song, and we mentioned that piano is a new addition for this album, but it's used in Deus in Absentia in a little run, or it's used in Absolution for the bedding of the chorus. Another thing about Cerise is very similar to He Is. There is this great sound texture from all of the different instruments playing. We have the acoustic guitar and the organ and the keyboard and the guitars and the electric guitars and the vocals all doing these different things, and it just makes the sound feel so rich. But in Zenith, the piano is prominent, and the playing is quite nuanced actually in the way that it's harmonized. You have each hand playing these chord shapes, and the exact notes that they play are a little bit tricky to spot at first glance. You need to do some close listening to work out exactly what harmony is being played with each melody note. But instead of introducing a heavy guitar riff and then building around that, we seem to play the piano melody in around that F minor chord and then build the riff around that. And the chorus is quite unconventional for Ghost as well, because when we leave the verse, it feels like we're entering a pre-chorus. And the pre-chorus just keeps building and building and building until we've heard the chorus, until it's over, and then we go back into the verse. And that's a really interesting structure. And the coolest part about this song is the bridge, where we have the choir return, especially the countertenor choir, singing in Latin. And that's a really great thing about this song that texturally really identifies it. This song is great, and it's a great cult classic as well. Because of its release, there's a lot of people who maybe still haven't heard this song or have only heard it recently. And if you have missed it, you should definitely check it out. It's really good. And the other song to mention is the most famous one. I mean, I'm used to saying the most famous one because it hasn't really registered with me just how famous Mary on a Cross is. And I'm not the biggest fan of that song. So to me, the biggest Ghost song, even though it might not technically be the biggest anymore, but the one that was the most famous, the biggest single by them for the longest time, was Square Hammer. This is really the mainstream breakout single for the band. I mean, Cerise was popular and garnered attention, but Square Hammer was what brought people to listen to Cerise. It really broke through, and you can really see why. When we talked about anthemic choruses, like Cerise has and like Absolution has, Square Hammer has the biggest anthemic chorus of them all. To this day, there is not a bigger chorus than Square Hammer. The only thing coming close would be Dance Macabre. And that line in the chorus, "Are you ready to swear right here, right now, before the devil," just encapsulates Ghost, really. If you were Ghost, you couldn't hope for a better breakout song than Square Hammer. And it's so accessible as well. It's 4 minutes, it's perfectly streamlined and optimized, and the guitar tone for this is slightly different to how it sounds for the rest of the album. It sounds slightly heavier, slightly more distorted, and that contrasts it more with the guitar lead, which again sounds very much like an organ at the start, and again giving that sort of Scooby-Doo sound. The drive of the song is maintained by the drums, where we're hitting the snare constantly on each downbeat, and that gives space to the rest of the instruments. The guitars pull back, and other instruments that are part of the Ghost soundscape, like the organ or the keyboard, come in and play little parts and introduce themselves. And so when we hit the bridge solo part, they all come together, and it feels really natural and really expected. But it's just a great riff. That opening riff is immediately recognizable. It's really, really clever. And it's no surprise that this song was such a big hit for them. So if I were to include those two in my overall ranking, I would have Deus in Absentia at 10 as normal, Mummy Dust above, Majesty, Spirit, and then in 6th place I'd put Zenith, so above Spirit, but below He Is. And in 5th place I'm putting Square Hammer, because I don't think Square Hammer is as good as He Is for me. I get a lot more out of listening to He Is, and the way that there's so much counterpoint in He Is, and the lyrics and the double meanings. And then Absolution, From the Pinnacle to the Pit, and Cerise at number 1. So that would be my overall ranking of those 10 songs, Square Hammer and Zenith. I like them both, and they're sandwiched just in the middle there. So that's my ranking for Zenith. Those are my thoughts and opinions. Let me know if you agreed or disagreed. Put your opinions in the comments. Have a chat about it. And if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe, and then tune back in on Friday when we will be talking about Prequelle. Okay, welcome back. Today we're talking about Prequelle. I'm very excited for this one because this is without a doubt my favourite Ghost album. Sort of the point of going back to these albums and listening to them again was to give some songs that maybe I'd overlooked another chance, and also properly reevaluate whether or not Prequelle is my favourite, because this has always been my favourite Ghost album since I started listening to Ghost. There was a time very early on where I would have said Opus was my favourite, but that wasn't very long, and For as long as I can really remember, having listened to this band, this has been the album that is my favourite. That is the best one. This has been the album that I'm always able to listen to. I can put it on at any time, and every single song on this thing is just great. There are many things about this album that make it much more distinct from the others, and when I was listening to it again for this video, and in fact every time I listen to it, I'm just blown away with how good it sounds. The songs are the best they've ever been. The mix on this album is incredible. This is the best Ghost have sounded, and I'll have to check when I finally get to Impera and Skeletá. But this album, in terms of its overall sound, is going to take some beating, because the size of this album, the scale of it, in terms of the soundscape, is just enormous. And I completely love that. I normally take quite a lot of notes so that I know what I'm going to be saying for each song, just to order my thoughts. But for this one, I was listening to it, I didn't even really take any notes at all. I've listened to this album so many times. Like, I wrote some notes for Ashes, and then as soon as I got to Rats, I just wrote no notes needed. So without further ado, we shall get into it. The first track is Ashes. This isn't part of my ranking as it's just the intro, but immediately this album is different from the others. If you compare this to the other intros, like Deus Culpa, which is this ambient, warm intro, or you compare it to the intro to Spirit, which is sort of cartoonishly spooky, but it's still quite warm, and the campiness maybe has like a friendliness about it, evoking those childhood Scooby-Doo soundtracks. Or you think about Infestissumam, which the main takeaway from that intro is how grand and epic it is. It's signalling that this is a bigger album than Opus. We've got scale and grandiosity now in the music. Ashes doesn't have warm ambience. It doesn't have, comically spooky elements. The tone Ashes establishes is one that is actually very creepy. And there is a horror element present in this track and really throughout many of the other songs. And there's been some gothic elements before, but incorporating horror, that isn't really something we've seen before. With the spooky nursery rhyme that leads into the Spokesonat melody, which is returning from Meliora. But as well as being creepy, this track also has the scale that Infestissumam has. When the rest of the band comes in with the drums and the synthesizers, that melody builds into Rats really well. It's my favourite intro to a Ghost album. So at 9th place on this album, unfortunately at the bottom, we have to put See the Light. Now this track is not bad by any means. The song is grand and great. I think the groove in the verses is really great. I really like the verses a lot, actually. I think that they sound really unique for Ghost. But I think the chorus is a little bit weaker than every other track on this album. I don't think that the lyrics of drink me, eat me, then you'll see the light, I don't think they're really very hooky, and I don't think they convey all that much. But melodically, I really love this song. I just think it's brilliant. But something has to go last, and unfortunately, in this case, that's See the Light. But this would not be at the bottom if it was on another album. At 8th place, I don't like putting any of these at the bottom because I love all of these tracks so much, but Helvetis Fonster is at 8th place. This was really quite hard to decide on because actually the songs that are at places 6, 7 and 8 are all roughly the same quality. I can't really distinguish them. And, ask me on another day, I probably would have put maybe this above what's going to be at 7th place or 6th place, but I've just listened to the album and this is what felt right for me to do. One thing to say is I just love these instrumental tracks. We haven't had instrumentals that are this extended and this long in this format, and it's brilliant that Ghost did this because they're so good at writing them, and it's a real shame that to this day we haven't got another long-form instrumental, the closest thing being Umbra, but that still technically is a song. I really wish that Ghost would bring this stuff back because Helvetis Fonster just takes you on a bit of a journey. I love the 6/8 feel. It starts off slow and mysterious, building itself up. Then the piano break comes in and kind of throws us into the deep end a little bit. The synths come in and take over from the melody. And the grooves and the melodies in these middle sections are just really great. They're great fun. Another thing I noticed was that when the drums come in quite early, they have this huge sound. They're drenched in reverb. And actually, The timbre of the drums sounds very 80s. This is the first time I've been able to identify in Ghost that they have this retro sound. Beforehand, like in Meliora, for example, or something before, I maybe would have said it's old-fashioned in that it feels like old metal. It's very raw sounding, it has a raw guitar tone. But this album, instrumentally, does feel like it's evoking the 80s a lot more. But it feels like it fits because this is a prequel. This album is called Prequelle. It should feel maybe older than the previous albums. I do have a concern that going into Impera and Skeletá, we harkened back on this era of sound too much, that we embellished too much into the 80s. But for this track and for this album as a whole, and also for 7 Inches of Satanic Panic, this sound works like a charm. It fits Ghost like a glove. And it is my favourite sound from them. This is the best that they sounded, stylistically, for me. So yeah, Helvetisfonster at 8, unfortunately, and at 7, we have Pro Memoria. So I think, historically, I would probably put Pro Memoria below Helvetisfonster, because Helvetisfonster is quite complex in its structure, it has melodies that really draw you in, but I've put Pro Memoria above today because I think the melodies in Pro Memoria are just as good as they are in Helvetisfonster, if not better. The opening melody is really great. Also, the instruments we're using, there's so much more variety than there has been in previous albums. Using strings and the piano in the way that we have, it makes this album so much more interesting than previous albums, and it also makes it feel like a proper evolution. Like this band is really growing in what it can do and what it's going to prove to you that it can do. But much like See the Light, Pro Memoria isn't really going to break into the top of these tracks ever because the verses are brilliant. I really love them. I love the piano accompaniment in the verses as well. I think that's so cool. But the chorus is a bit lacking. It's a bit repetitive, but at least each chorus is doing something slightly different with the don't you forget about dying, don't you forget about your friend death. Which means that by the end of the track, the first chorus is very different to the final chorus, and there are these backing vocals and these second subject melodies that they're doing, which really escalate the drama and make it sound brilliant. But a really great song. I hate to put it at 7th. And at 6th place, again, kind of the same quality as Pro Memoria and Helvetisfonster, is Life Eternal. This song is a brilliant Ghost ballad. I don't know what the best Ghost ballad really is. I mean, I guess you could say He Is, but Life Eternal is so different from He Is. I would never listen to Life Eternal for the same reason I listen to He Is. He Is an acoustic guitar-driven song, and Life Eternal is led by the piano. And I love that we have this variety for whatever we want. You want an acoustic one? He Is. You want a piano one? Life Eternal. Ghost can do it. And I think that knowing that Tobias sang this about his brother as well really adds another level to this song. But it isn't just an acoustic piano ballad, it builds itself up. The backing vocals in this album are just amazing, and especially on this song, they really shine. It's definitely a sad song, but it's got this core of optimism as well. This is the moment of just letting go. Letting go isn't good, it doesn't feel nice, but it's moving you on to the next chapter. And what better way to end an album than to move on to the next chapter? It just works so well. So much like Prequelle has the best intro, it has the best outro track as well. Now that I'm talking about it, maybe Life Eternal should go higher, but that would be difficult for me to justify because some of the songs coming up are just some of the best that Ghost have ever made. At number 5, I've got Witch Image. This song is quite an underrated one within their discography. It's a bit overlooked, I think. I think it's got the quality of a single and it's got the catchiness of a big Ghost hit, but it never really gets featured in the live sets and it doesn't get the same amount of attention as the others. And I think that's a big shame because the groove on it is amazing. And with lyrics in the chorus like someone's flesh is rotting tonight, harkening back to Ritual, one of the very first songs from Ghost, this just feels like a bit of old mixed in with a bit of new. And it just feels like it's thrown into the album like, yeah, we wrote this. Here you go. Here's another great song. And if Ghost wrote a song like this and released it today, it would be, in my opinion, a far cry above anything else that they've written for a very long time. So yeah, Witch Image, Really catchy in the verses, really catchy in the choruses, great guitar tone, great groove. What's not to love about this song? Brilliant. Right, and now we're at the top 4. So number 4 is Danse Macabre. Now, if you want my opinion, all of these top 4 songs, because you know which ones are left, are pretty much the same quality. And that's because they're the best songs that Ghost have ever written. Danse Macabre is the ultimate pop rock song. I can't really think of one that is much better than this. From the last album, Square Hammer was the breakout big mainstream single. To me, Danse Macabre completely eclipses Square Hammer. I think that it's fair to say that maybe some of the satanic elements of Ghost at this point are starting to be lost. At least with Square Hammer, we are saying, are you ready to swear right here, right now before the devil? That overtness is still present. But by this point, you don't even know this is a satanic band. And sometimes that really bothers me about Ghost. But in this case, the song is just too good. And stylistically, this fits with this album so well. This isn't really a concept album. I sort of mentioned before at albums 1 and 2 that there is a narrative being strung throughout Opus and Infestissumam. That isn't really happening in Meliora. We just have a collection of really great songs. The music videos and single art have a lot of Art Deco 1930s imagery associated with them, which is great, but I don't really get that sense from the songs. In this album, whatever the theme seems to be is one to do with the plague and rats being plague carriers and being infected with the plague in the case of this song. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but this song is supposed to be about contracting the plague and then dying from it. And because we're going to die of the plague, we might as well party in, let's say, Middle Ages establishments where fun times can be sought. So this song really fits in with that theme of this album. Ghost had never written a vocal hook this good. This song, it has incredible scale, it has great groove, the drums are fantastic, the guitar solo is brilliant in this song, so intricate, and this song seems to be at the perfect tempo where you can just jump up and down to it. It feels like you can just be jumping for the whole song, which is great. Okay, at number 3, we have Faith. This song hits you like a train. I've always found the opening guitar leads to be very interesting. We have a group of 3, and then another group of 3, and then a group of 5. So it opens with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and repeats that, and then we go into 4, 4. Don't know why that's so impactful, but it just is. The drums on those accents at the start of each division are so loud, has such a huge impact, and then it leads you into the verse riff, which is incredibly heavy. So chromatic as well. And I love the accented notes at the end of the riff, where the drums double up on the china as well. Lyrically, this song is a quintessential Ghost song. The opening lyric to this song is, "There is a scourge in the guise of sanctity, a perpetrator with a quill." First of all, I love the rhyming of all the different lyrics. I love the poetry of it. It's so evocative and cryptic. And the chorus melody is great because it kind of feels like it shouldn't work. There are some quite strange melody choices and how long the notes last for. They're not falling perfectly on each downbeat. We have dotted crotchets going on with some of these notes. And so it's quite surprising that this chorus is as impactful as it is. But the highlight of this song are the solos. The first solo is a dark and brooding solo. And following the tried and true Ghost formula that we have come to know and love from the last 3 albums, the first solo is dark, and the second solo, after the second chorus, is much brighter and doing different developments. The harmonization of the solos in this album and in this song as well are a real step up from Meliora. I remember saying that Meliora has a real improvement in its solos because of the harmonized thirds and fourths. But every guitar part in this album has more than one guitar tracked, and they're all doing different things in the solos. The bridge is really great, and I love how we end the track with the opening guitar melody, the 3-3-5 thing that we heard right at the start. Okay, at number 2 is Miasma. Another incredible instrumental track from Ghost. Definitely their best one. Truly baffling why they decided in the movie not to play this in its full uninterrupted length and instead have a bunch of dialogue over the top of it. I have no idea why they decided to do that. but at least we have the live version of it finally in the album release. The best thing about this song, okay, it's the sax solo at the end, but really the thing that makes that solo work is the build that we've had for like 4 continuous minutes up to that point. Much like Helvetis Fonster, we start off small, but Miasma actually picks up the pace very early on. It has great drive right at the start, and it continues that drive until the end of the song. Are we good? This working? I hope so. The melody of this song is across 5 bars of 4/4. This is really unusual. Another song that does this is Idiotech by Radiohead. The song is in 4, and there's 4 beats in each measure, but the melody from start to end is across 5 measures. So 20 beats. That's not normal. Normally it would only be across 4 or across 2, 2 bars of 4 or 4 bars of 4. That's probably the most common. But where you would expect the melody to end and then repeat itself in a normal song, in this song, it is extended by 1 extra bar. And the really cool thing that is doing is that it's kind of throwing you off a little bit. And you can't really keep track of exactly where you are in the song on a first listen. But the result is it's pulled you in and you're just experiencing the song gradually growing and getting more and more intense. That extra bar, more than we would expect, is escalating the tension or the drama in the music. And that main melody develops itself as well. It goes into multiple different developments before the sax solo comes in. In fact, the underlying rhythm underneath also changes a little bit before the sax solo comes in. So it's really got 2 distinct halves, this song. From the first time I'd heard this, it is a masterpiece. And that doesn't really change however many more times you listen to it. The song is just incredible, and it's a real shame that Ghost never really tried to do something like this again, because this instrumental style really works for them, and whatever they were doing around this time to make this song and Helvetis Fonster was completely new, fit like a glove, and made the best songs they've ever written. And it should be played at every single live performance of Ghost. Somehow, I managed to go to one of the few live performances where they didn't play this song. I don't know why that was. Maybe next time. But I don't want it disappearing out of the set forever, because it's one of the best. And at number 1, we have Rats. This song is just so good. Like I mentioned before, no notes needed when I listen to this song. It's just so good. This is a really heavy Ghost song. It has a seriously groovy main riff, even though it's just zeros and then 2 chords at the end. There is a real venom and hatred in the lyrics to this song, which I think is so effective. I mean, it's quite obvious what Tobias is singing about, given the court case and everything, exposing his anonymity once and for all. So yeah, you can understand why he's a little bit pissed off with his former bandmates, and this song, Rats, is definitely about them. But despite that, it fits with the satanic theme of Ghost and also fits with this plague theme that seems to be existing throughout Prequelle. There are so many highlights to this song. The pre-chorus is great. The pre-chorus builds up to that chorus so well. Definitely the best pre-chorus that Ghost have ever written, without a doubt. The melodies just continue to climb until we resolve into the chorus. And the first chorus is the opening riff that we heard, which is very, very similar to the verse riff. It's just without the repeated notes on the open string. And that first chorus is really groovy and cool, and then it has this really short guitar solo at the end, which should always end in a pinch harmonic. It's this really dark and fast run down the D minor scale. I also like that we have these little variations in the lyrics through each pre-chorus as well. The second chorus is a lot better than the first chorus, because once we hit that one, we then start having these backing vocals again. Another thing about this album, which is really great, are those backing vocals. And they're singing this second melody line after Tobias sings Rats. And that is the vocal hook for this song. That is what makes this song so catchy. After that second chorus, we then have the second solo. Again, Ghost like this formula a lot. We've had one solo first, which has been quite dark, and now this second one is a little bit slower. It's a bit of a halftime solo, and it's a lot more brighter and major. The ride cymbal on the drums is really giving that solo some space to explore some ideas. The solo builds up again, and then it gets a lot faster. That brings us into the last epic pre-chorus, the last chorus, after which we have the outro, which is the most famous part of the song, and everyone's favourite, I'm convinced, which is the Spokesnap melody as a chuggy breakdown. And I can't really think of many times that Ghost have done proper breakdowns like this. This is one of the few. Normally Ghost just try and be texturally heavy, like Pinnacle to the Pit or Cerise. But this is a proper breakdown. And Ghost should definitely write more breakdowns because clearly they're very good at doing them. The melody is so unusual. It's a really weird one, which is why it works so well for a Ghost breakdown, because it's this, well, it's like Cerise. It's a really dissonant melody. So unusual for any other band to come up with. It is such a quintessentially Ghost dissonant melody. So that is Prequelle. Let me know your thoughts. Which Ghost album is your favourite? Because this one is definitely mine. This is the closest I can really get to doing analysis of these songs, because analysis videos take an awful lot longer to get out. They get claimed as well and then blocked in certain places. So I like talking about these songs and I like talking about them in quite technical detail, but it can be quite hard to actually put a full analysis together like that, with this only really being a hobby. So let me know your thoughts and stay tuned for the next album. I'm not sure if I'm going to do Impera next or 7 Inches of Satanic Panic, but it'll be one of the two. All right, welcome back. I thought before I'll do my Impera review and ranking, I will do the EP in between. I haven't really talked about the EPs because they contain mostly covers and very few original songs. So when I talked about Meliora, I talked about the original songs of Square Hammer and Zenith, even though those aren't on the album. I will talk very briefly about the EPs and the covers at the end of all of my studio album reviews, but seeing as this one is entirely made of new material, it just makes sense to do it before Impera. And just overall, I really like this EP. I think that the sound is a very retro sound from the 70s and 80s that carried on from the Prequelle style. So it naturally fits with what Ghost were doing at the time. And also within the canon, within the story, this is meant to be Papa Nil's music from 50 years ago. So this retro sound that this EP has and that all the songs on it have really works for me. And I think there is some stuff on here that is really excellent. Unfortunately, I do have to start off with a song that I don't particularly like. That was a song that was never originally on this EP because it was meant to just be a 7-inch single with Kiss the Goat on one side and Mary on a Cross on the other. But after Right Here, Right Now, they added the song Future is a Foreign Land to the digital release of 7 Inches of Satanic Panic. Now, I understand why, because it's the same singer. But I have to say, Future is a Foreign Land is probably the worst of Ghost's impulses. This is the last thing I listen to Ghost for. I do not listen to them for songs about fascism, communism, the Cold War, or anything like that. I listen to them because they evoke satanic imagery. This song just could not be further from that. When I was watching Right Here, Right Now in the cinema and this played at the end, I laughed really hard because it's just shockingly out of place in that movie and also in the discography. I think, in fairness to it, the song has definitely grown on me slightly over time. I can appreciate some things about it, like it has a good mix, the instruments all sound very good. I actually prefer the James Bond style verse, that guitar riff in the verse, more than the verse of Mary on a Cross, if I'm honest. I think this song has a better groove than Mary on a Cross does, but this song is so tacky. I cannot ever properly enjoy this song, especially the choral chanting of whatever year Ghost choose to sing. It's so cringy. It's a real letdown to Right Here, Right Now, and in my own headcanon, this was never added to 7 Inches of Satanic Panic. Why this song was released, I literally have no idea. But we'll get more into the politics that Ghost started to venture into in certainly the next album. So with that out the way, that is my least favourite song on this EP, and my second favourite song on the EP is Mary on a Cross. There are obviously some things I really like about Mary on a Cross. I like the guitars. I think the light distortion on the guitars is very nice. I think it's slightly heavier as well, slightly crunchier than the tone on Kiss the Goat. And the verse is interesting because the melody in the verse is being carried by the keys. The keys are using this digital organ sound, and I like that. It fits with Ghost sound, and stylistically, I think this song, whilst being a bit out of place, does on the whole fit in with Ghost discography. The real standout for this song are the vocal harmonies. Those vocal harmonies in the chorus, in the bridge, in the verse, they're just everywhere in this song. And they are the thing that elevate this song. I don't really know, though, why this song became their biggest song. If I were to tier list rank the songs, this is a B tier song for me. I really wish I could like it as much as everyone else, but it's just never done it for me. Maybe because I prefer heavier stuff from them, but I like a variety of stuff from Ghost, so I don't know how much of a difference that actually makes. And like I said, even though sonically it's very different, it does at least feel like a Ghost song, especially a Ghost song written in the 70s by borrowing stylistic elements from that time. The lyrics are quite clever, as Mary could be referring to so many different things, especially in Christianity. Is it the Virgin Mary? Is it the Queen Bloody Mary? Is it Mary Magdalene? So this double or multiple meaning that I've said before, I love in Ghost lyrics, is at least very present here. And there are definitely some things I like, but I'm just not that crazy about it. It's okay. But turning Mary on a cross into marijuana is something that Tobias Forge likes to do because let's just say we have different senses of humour, I think. And at number 1, obviously, the only song left, is Kiss the Go-Goat. This is an incredible song. Going back to the tier list, this would be on the S tier. This would be like top of the top. I love Kiss the Go-Goat. It is amazing. It's the first song on the EP, and the thing you really notice is the guitar tone, at least I do. I noticed that the tone is crunchier and less heavy than it would have been in Prequelle or Meliora. It's not a traditional metal tone, it's more like a hard rock tone. Really fitting with this 70s and 80s style. I love the singing in Latin. I've said that before, but they do it here and it's great. The keyboard synth solo is a real highlight of the song. I love that, and I love the triplets in it. It's just brilliant. The song has an undeniable groove. You just want to jump up and down to it. It's so good. And it's such a Ghost song. Like, this is exactly what I would expect them to make. Like, I don't listen to them for Future is a Foreign Land. I don't want that. I want Kiss the Go-Goat. That's what I want. I want more songs like that. This is definitely one of the best they've done. So that was just a quick one on 7 inches of Satanic Panic. I'll be doing Impera next, so if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe. In between making these, I make other things as well, like orchestral versions of songs, so check those out if that's your kind of thing, and let me know your favourites in the comments. I'm very curious to see what you think. And check out what my thoughts are on Impera. Okay, so today we're doing Impera, ranking and reviewing each of these tracks. I've done the first 4 albums, and I've done 7 inches of Satanic Panic, so go check those out if you'd like. And from re-listening to all of these, Prequelle is definitely my favourite. And it seems very strange to me that after coming off my favourite album from these guys, that I get one that so far is my least favourite. I think it's important to come out the gate with that, because Impera is an album that is very loved, especially by Ghost fans. Ghost fans love this record. I can understand why, and I'm not dismissive of it. I don't try to be. I'm hoping that I can explain why some of the songs on here really don't work for me, because there are also some songs on here that I really like a lot. There aren't many of those, but they do exist. And so I'm going to be talking through the album in chronological order this time, and you may have to bear with me on some of the songs, because I know for a fact there are going to be some songs here that I like that others don't, and that I don't like and that others do. So just hear me out on this one. I promise I'm not a hater that much. The first track is Imperium. This is great. It's a really nice melody, and it's a slow but still energetic way to open the album. That energy is given by the snare drum. The thing I like the most about this track is how this melody returns at the end of the final track to also close the album. So it opens it and it closes it. And we will get to that part of this album a little bit later. But Imperium leads us into Caesarion, and I've literally written in my notes from when I last listened to this, who cares? I cannot care about this song. I think I find that opening high vocal extremely alienating. It definitely doesn't draw me in. This track is setting a tone for this album that I just don't vibe with. The heaviness is present. Like, the guitars are heavy and there is an impact to the drums, and the bass tone is great. You can hear the bass clearly throughout all of these songs. But even though it's heavy, it's lost all of its moodiness. There is no darkness in many of these songs. Caesarion is major. It's upbeat. It's bright. The only reasons those things worked for me in Ghost before was because they were juxtaposed by something dark. It was the contrast between the lighter elements and the darker elements, or the double meaning, that really lended nuance and impact to Ghost. I literally sense no darkness or double meaning at all in this song. Maybe you could argue that there is a contrast between this person they're singing about being stoned to death and the sort of major upbeatness of the song, but it doesn't work. Technically, I should like this song. The guitar playing is a lot more technical than anything we've heard before from the previous albums, and I think the mix on this song is insanely good, as it is for all of the songs on this album. You can hear every detail. And I should like the triplet switch up in the middle. You know, that playing with form and convention is something I normally really like, but I think I like it more in theory than in practice here. Lyrically, I'm quite lost at certain points in this song. The song is somehow about a mathematician, I think, who was stoned to death, but also we have lyrics in here like, it's the sound of another deadline whistling past your ears. I don't get this song. I don't know what it's trying to convey to me. It should work, but I don't feel it. So that's a real shame. But next we have Spillways, and this is a lot better. This has a good groove. Immediately it sounds like ABBA, which is very funny, but it is still good because obviously the rest of this song does not sound anything like ABBA, and that's never been a comparison that I've disliked with Ghost. The chorus is really catchy in this song. Unlike Kaiserion, this song gives me a really great sense of fun. I don't know why this one works and Kaiserion doesn't, but this is just so much fun. This just works so much better for me. Maybe it's because it's dialed back a bit. I do sometimes feel that Kaiserion is trying to do too much, so maybe that's it. The guitar solos in this song, because there's quite a few, even as background ambient sometimes, are incredible. Technically, we're really stepping up in terms of the guitar playing. And interestingly, where Kaiserion feels like it goes on for too long and can be wrapped up more quickly, Spillways is over too quickly. So a really good song, really enjoy Spillways. And number 3, the next song, is Call Me Little Sunshine. And I never know how to feel about this song. I don't mind it. I think the riff is well constructed, but I don't find it very catchy. And I don't find it very interesting actually either. This feels like a really diluted version of what Ghost used to sound like, and I think that's the problem. All of the stylistic elements you would expect are here. It's got an organ, it's got a riff, but I wouldn't even say the riff is that dark. Nowhere near as dissonant as something like Cerise, and so it does actually very much feel like it's in Cerise's shadow with this acoustic riff. There are many things about the song I'm not fully convinced by. Like, I'm not convinced the key change was fully necessary at the end. I'm not against it particularly, but it does feel like we're just trying to reach a height, a climax to this song that just isn't really there. Lyrically though, this is quite good. I like the lyrics a lot more than I like this song, because it's a shame the music doesn't really meet the level of the lyrics. But if I were to be cruel to this song, I would say it's a poor man's Cerise. It's trying to do things that Cerise did, but ultimately not able to distinguish itself enough and not able to reach those heights. And next is Hunter's Moon. This is also a really conflicting song. I like the verses a lot. The chorus does not do it for me at all though. The synth and the guitar leads feel very confused, and I don't know what it's trying to convey. The post-chorus break after the second chorus is quite frankly all over the place. There are some cool bits after the second chorus that sound a bit like the Zenith Bridge with the dark vocals, and the solo starts off strong after that, but the solo then immediately stops for some reason, and we get instead these very out-of-place accents and vocal stings, which bring us back into the chorus, but this time the chorus has a random high-pass filter thing on it, which means it just sounds weird, to be honest, rather than interesting or good. So the verses are great, but the choruses feel confused, and then after the second chorus, it's just anything goes. And you get the sense that they also didn't really know how to end this song either, because the way that it does end is by emphasizing the 3-3-2 subdivision, and I just don't think that works here. The thing I'm coming back to with this song is, what are you trying to make me feel? What is this song actually trying to bring out in me? Because all it's managing to achieve at the moment is confusion. That's all I've got from Hunter's Moon. I don't feel like it's spooky. I don't feel like it's really heavy. I'm just puzzled. And that's never what you want, especially from a Ghost song, where Ghost is supposed to have a really clear mission statement about what their music is actually about. Hunter's Moon is the last thing I'd expect. Well, that's not quite true. Future is a Foreign Land is the last thing I'd expect, but, this is not what I'm listening to Ghost for. We can do a lot better than this. Next up, we have Watcher in the Sky. This is a perfect example of a song that would be really great if it was 3.5 to 4 minutes long instead of 6. The opening riff, which is also the chorus riff, is really great. It builds up, and it builds up quite well as well, but then collapses into the verse riff, which is my favourite part of the song, because the chugging in the verse is so heavy. Probably the heaviest part of this whole album. I love it, combined with the eerie synth in the background. All of those moments, so the chorus riff and the verse riff, I really like about the song. And I like the solo as well, but I do have to admit, the chorus is a bit nauseating in how repetitive it is, and the fade out at the end of this song does not help that at all. I do have some ideas of how you could improve this song. I think you should keep the intro, maybe not the 15 seconds of mechanical ambience right at the start. Cut that, but you do the intro, builds up, collapses down into the verse riff. No pre-chorus, don't think that's necessary. We can just go straight from the verse riff into the chorus. And after the first chorus, we go straight back into the verse riff with some vocals. So we're going to skip the riffy, chuggy bit. But we'll come back to that later. So intro, verse, chorus, verse, second chorus. We're going to get rid of the bridge. After the second chorus, we can go straight into the tapping solo, because I really like that harmonized solo. That continues as normal into the chorus, and then we do the chorus again. But then after we've done it twice, we stop and then go from that chorus into the riffy chugging bit we skipped before, after what was going to be the first chorus. And that riffy chugging can be a breakdown, it can basically be a perfect way to end that song. I think with that structure, you've made the song a lot shorter, and you've also got a much more addicting structure. I think the bridge feels quite out of place in this song, and I'm not convinced the pre-choruses are totally necessary. I do like this song to some extent, but it does have a problem because it's just all over itself, and it needed some refining. Because with the length that it's currently at, I really don't like listening to it. I would stop listening to it after the first 2 minutes, because I've heard everything I want to hear from this song by then. I don't need to listen to the chorus over and over again until it fades out. That was one of the things I really liked about the movie, actually, is it talked over the ending of Watcher in the Sky, made the song a lot more bearable. After this, we have a little interlude, which is Dominion. I don't think much of it. It's okay. As an intro to 20s, I don't think it's necessary, because melodically it's quite separate, but it's only 1 minute and 23, so I don't mind it at all. So after that is obviously 20s, and this is so much better. 20s is brilliant. I have to be honest, when I first heard this many years ago, I was not fully convinced. I don't think anyone was, but over time this has really grown on me. I think this is the heaviest song overall on the album. I love the Latin drum groove that's going on. I think the riffing is brilliant. This is such a fun song to play. It's all over the place. And I said before when we've been talking about Future is a Foreign Land that I don't listen to Ghost for politics. I don't listen to them to talk about fascism, communism, or the Cold War or anything like that. And I still stand by that. I don't really want to be listening to Ghost for anything other than satanic imagery and commentary on religion and spirituality. But given that this is where we are, and Impera is ostensibly an album about American imperialism, I suppose, I think that 20s actually does really work. But it only works on this album. You could not have this on any other Ghost album. It simply wouldn't fit. One of the things that's really great about 20s are the lyrics. And the lyrics can, be a bit of a turn off for some people. We'll be grinding in a pile of moolah. And I appreciate it if you think that that's just too silly. But I think what it's doing is 20s uses a lot of what was said in the early 20th century about the future. If you take the 1910s, really this is meant to be placing you more or less into the position of someone from the 1930s, especially if you think about 1930s Germany. What were the kind of things that people were saying about their lives at that time? Well, they weren't great, but due to the electing of certain political leadership, there was this feeling that life was going to get better and things were going to improve. And lyrically, this song is all about, we're going to have more money. We're going to get more money. Economically, this country, our individual or family prospects are going to improve, going from the 1930s into the 1940s. And we obviously know, bit of dramatic irony, that didn't happen. There was the Second World War. Things actually got quite a bit worse, economically and socially. And so this song uses that knowledge there to interpret it into the present day, because this album came out in 2022, the early 2020s. What were the kind of things people were saying going from one decade into another? I think a lot of people were hopeful the 2020s were going to be a better decade, especially after economic hardship in many Western countries following the 2008 financial crisis and its continuing effects. But what happened right at the start of that decade, what happened right at the start of the 1940s, there was a catastrophe. From the 2010s into the 2020s, there was a pandemic. From the 1910s into the 1920s, there was a flu pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic. From the 1930s into the 1940s, there was the Second World War. And so this song is actually a cautionary tale against fascism, because the song is assuming that you know that the predictions for the future aren't going to pan out as optimistically as they're being portrayed in this song. And if someone is pitching that idea, then there's often a catch, because the problems aren't that simple to solve. So I think the song is very effective in communicating a subtle message against populism. I think the message is subtle. Ironically, I don't think the song is very subtle at all. The song is probably as in your face as it could possibly get for Ghost. But as you can probably tell, I get quite a lot out of this song. And it's an example where Ghost going in the Impera direction actually really worked. Instrumentally, the song is really interesting as well. I think the soloing is really great. We have the classic guitar solo formula for Ghost, where the guitar solo begins and it's really dark and moody, but then it becomes brighter as the solo continues. One thing that's really characteristic of this song are the half-step modulations, the key changes. So these are most notable in the chorus. When we have the chorus and we say 20s, there are first of all some very dissonant backing vocals. I like the dissonant backing vocals, but I totally understand if you really don't like those. And after we've said 20s a couple times, we then half-step modulate up. I don't know if they're all half-step modulations actually, they may just be like key changes, but that's what I mean when I say a half-step modulation. That means key changing up by a semitone. But we change key quite a few times actually in some of the later choruses, and I think the key changing upwards would also signify the optimism baked into the lyrics of the song, the predictions for the future. So I like it when the lyrics and the meaning of the song are reflected by the direction of the music. We also hear those key changes during the solo as well, and that's what also lends it that brighter tone, that brighter feeling to the developed sections of the solo. So yeah, 20s is great. Honestly, don't really get the hate for 20s. After 20s, we have Darkness at the Heart of My Love. And I do think, and unfortunately, I think that this is the low point of the album. In fact, if it weren't for some absolutely diabolical stuff on Skeletá, this would be the low point of Ghost discography for me. Some of you might think, if this is the low point, I'll take it. It's a pretty high low point. And fair enough. There are obviously some positives to this song, like the mix, which I'm going to keep saying because all of the songs on this album sound great. I can't stress that enough. The guitars sound great, especially the acoustic triplet melody in the verse. But unfortunately, this is basically Ghost doing Imagine Dragons. The percussion sounds so much like Believer. The key changing in this song as well does absolutely nothing for me. I just think it's unnecessary. Ghost have done that a lot in this album as well. I know I praised the key changing in 20s, but we've key changed a lot of times, and it's starting to not really be as effective as it should be. I think this, combined with the key change in Call Me Little Sunshine, have undermined their impact. Ghost have made love songs before, and they've made them work. This just doesn't work. I don't know how best to describe it, other than it is trying really hard to reach a dramatic high point that I, listening to it, never even come close to experiencing. There's a disconnect between me and the song. and I'm never going to be able to enjoy it if the song isn't able to take me with it. It's a really out of place song. I don't understand why this was released. After that, we have Griftwood, and this is much better. This is an improvement. The riffing here is much more up my street. The bass tone is especially noticeable in this. The bass is adding a lot to this song. It's either at the end of the verse or in the pre-chorus. You can really hear that bass coming through. It gives such a warmth to the song. It really adds so much. Griftwood has a catchy chorus. I don't think it's as memorable as other tracks on here and also previous Ghost songs, but it is really good. Like, I'm not going to diss this song. I enjoy this quite a bit. After that, we have Bite of Passage, which is okay. Again, not sure it's totally necessary, but I've got no problem with it leading into the best track on this whole album by a really long way, which is Respite on the Spitalfields. I know I said I like 20s a lot. Well, I like Respite on the Spitalfields way more than I like 20s. This song is amazing. And to give it its credit, Impera is the only album where this song would fit on it. This would not fit on Prequelle. This would not fit on Meliora. It would certainly not fit on the first two albums. Only because Ghost went in the Impera direction could Respite on the Spitalfields exist. So if the price of getting this gem of a song is Darkness at the Heart of My Love, I'll endure it, because this is really great stuff. The chorus is phenomenally good. Nothing Ever Lasts Forever, We Will Go Softly Into the Night is a brilliant vocal hook. And the structure of this whole song is really great. Remember when I said about Kaiserion that the reason that it doesn't really work for me is because there's no contrast between light and dark. It was all just upbeat and major. This song has darker, moodier sections that balance the brighter, fuller sections so well. It gets the balance perfectly right. It's a real journey of a song. Each section builds from a previous one. This entire thing is a linear progression right to the end, and it is a progression to the melody from Imperium, the opening melody of the album. We've dovetailed the start of this album and the end of it with that melody, and it is crazy how well the transition from the melody in the chorus is into the Imperium melody. It works so well, and they really take their time to set it up as well. After the last chorus, we go into an instrumental chorus, more like a outro bridge, where we really make the most of the melody from the vocal hook. And then we have this piano arpeggio in the keyboard that builds up into that melody, and that is the high point of the song and also the high point of the album. And I love it that we have the high point of the album right at the end, the final moment. It's just brilliant. So I love that all these sections build on each other. You compare that to something like Watcher in the Sky from this album, the different sections feel independent and that you could probably do without some of them. But here, they all interconnect really effectively. And the verse builds into the pre-chorus so well, and the pre-chorus is so good itself that sometimes I forget that the pre-chorus isn't actually the chorus. So once the pre-chorus ends, we get to another level of intensity and drama, and it's really great. That's how you know that every single part of this song is well constructed and effective at conveying meaning. That cannot be said, unfortunately, for all of this album, but on this song there is not a moment where it isn't spectacular at doing that. So that's what I think about Impera. I've tried to be as fair as possible, but I have to be honest, this album as a whole isn't for me, and I think that is because there's only 9 proper tracks, and with only 9, a lot is resting on each of those. At the end of the day, I only really like 3 of these songs, maybe 4 if you're including Griftwood, and it's just not enough to make me want to listen to this thing as a full album. I'll only ever listen to those songs in particular, and that's a real shame because I really like Ghost, but I think this album misses the mark for me, and I hope I've been able to explain it's not really because I'm biased against the album or anything. I just think that my taste doesn't align with this, and this is not a direction I wanted this band to go in. But even though we've gone down this road, there are still some things that I really like, because Respite on the Spitalfields is a top 10 Ghost song, like one of the best they've ever made, for sure. So to rank these songs, at the bottom we have Darkness at the Heart of My Love. not surprisingly. At number 8, we have Hunter's Moon, because that song just confused me. At number 7, we have Kaiserion, because it just doesn't really work for me, even though it should, and I can appreciate some objective aspects about it, some technical things, but I never feel it. At number 6, we have Call Me Little Sunshine. That's there because it's not as good as other stuff, but it is better. I'm not a huge fan of that riff, but the riff is okay. It's good enough. At number 5, we have Watcher in the Sky, because I can't deny that there are some sections of that song I really like, even if I don't like how all of them go together. At number 4, we have Griftwood, just a really solid song. At number 3, we have Spillways, which is really fun. Always enjoy that one. At number 2, we have 20s. And at number 1, just because it's so much more epic than 20s and gives you so much more, instrumentally that is. Although the lyrics to this song are also very good, I forgot to mention that. We have Respite on the Spitalfields at the top of the list. I've made 2 ranking videos before as shorts on this channel for Impera, so you can see how my opinions have changed over the last few years, but I always try to give this album a fair shot. I know I don't like it, but even though it's my least favourite so far, there is still good stuff on here, and I always try to approach it with an open mind. And that's what I'm going to try and do for Skeletá, because there are a couple songs I like on Skeletá, but you can probably gather that if I didn't like Impera, Skeletá certainly wasn't for me the first time I listened to it, but you never know. A little bit of time has passed, maybe it'll be a bit better. I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, then you should check out some of the previous ones if you haven't. You should like and subscribe if you liked it, because this channel is tiny and it really helps. And if you made it this far, then you shouldn't just be a silent lurker. You should let me know what your thoughts are on Impera, because I bet that they're not the same. And I'm really interested in what people think about this album and which tracks are their favourites. Because I know full well that I am bucking the trend when it comes to the average Ghost fan with this one. So let us all know, and I'll see you in the Skeletá review. It's been almost a year since Skeletá came out, so I'm reviewing this carefully. I'll be bringing up what I used to think about the songs and how my opinion has or hasn't changed over time. For those who've listened to my other album reviews for Ghost, it's clear I'm more of a fan of their earlier style, and Impera has been my least favourite so far. So it's not a surprise that I do struggle to really like all of this album, given how it is closer to the Impera style. But just like Impera, there are songs I like on here, and I don't want to be too dismissive of Skeletá, but some of these songs are hard to like when I know what Ghost is capable of. I actually completed the re-listen of this album and had a more positive view than I had when it first released. But I was in the car and the track Infestissumam happened to come on, and I suddenly realised that Skeletá is just not it. I heard dark Latin tenor vocals, a slow marching dark melody with grandiose instrumentation, and Skeletá is just never going to be that. The album is much better as long as you don't think about Opus, Infestissumam, Meliora, or Prequelle at all. And whilst I will always prefer what Ghost provided earlier in their discography, this album was never trying to be that. So it's comparing apples and oranges to some degree, and I want to be able to assess this thing based on its own merits and what it's trying to achieve. I think overall, Skeletá does achieve what it's trying to, but whatever the hell that is supposed to be just is not for me. And I would be plain dishonest to say I like or appreciate a track when I just don't. So I'm going to be going through the tracks in order, talking about what I like and what I don't, and then we'll do the ranking at the end and see also where Skeletá places as an album compared to the other Ghost albums. So starting off with Peacefield, this is a really good song. I like the choir even though it's more uplifting than what we're used to. For an album opener, this is really fitting with previous album openers we've had from Ghost before. The choir is singing in English, which is an interesting difference, instead of Latin, which we normally do. And I like the organ underneath it as well. Choir and organ is a classic Ghost combination. Right off the bat, the song is noticeably more uplifting than a typical Ghost track. But what carries it for me is the guitar riff. I really like it. It almost sounds like a 7/8 riff with the accenting, but it has enough beats and extra beats to take it up to 4/4. It sounds a lot like the 15th Doctor's theme from Doctor Who, so I always think about that whenever I hear it now. but the riff gives the song a really infectious groove. And there is an epicness to the intro and the chorus that I really enjoy. And the scale is definitely present live as well, because I heard this song live before it was released. And my main takeaway from that point in time was the scale of the intro. The drums sounded really enormous. The solo is a great one, really bright, matching the song's energy. And I love when it slows down as well. So we have a brighter section and a slower section, which is a bit of an inversion of the ghost solo trope that we've been talking about. This track has really grown on me over time, and I liked it quite a bit at the time as well. I just feel like the song trundles along at a really comfortable pace, it has a solid groove, and it's a really enjoyable track. It's a really great start to the album. The only reservation I have is kind of similar to the Impera reservation in general, which is that the dark elements of Ghost are completely absent here. And that is the stuff I prefer. There are lyrics in here like, "We are legion, join us," which is literally just a quote from Jesus. And this song can easily be mistaken for gospel music. There's no Satanism in this anymore at all. At least none that I can detect. Now I listen to the song loads, but I haven't really looked that carefully at the lyrics. But I'm okay with Ghost having more uplifting songs because everything else about this song really works for me, especially the instrumentation, and we get plenty of instrumental darkness in the next song, which is Lacrima. So in Lacrima, the riff is a classic Ghost sounding riff. This has a real first 3 albums sound about it, and I really like that. The keyboard melody is extremely square hammer, but I think that it is different enough. I don't think it's in the same key, which really helps it, and I really like when the melody comes back in the chorus, but that's where the square hammer comparisons end, because it doesn't sound anything like it, apart from the fact that melody is a bit similar to the riff. And I like the chorus a lot. I think it's quite anthemic, like Peacefield. It's very singable. It's got good hooks. The verse riff is heavier than Peacefield and is definitely one of the heaviest in the album. I think this is the heaviest the album gets in that verse riff. And actually, the reason the verses feel heavy is, of course, because of the guitars, but it's actually the bass. The bass tone is dark and heavy, and it's these staccato notes on each downbeat. They really give the song its heaviness, and if you've ever heard this song live, you know that it's the bass that is what makes this song. You can really hear it. I quite like the pre-chorus. I remember not being too sure of it at first, but I soon got over that. It's pretty dark sounding. The solos are a real highlight of the track. I love the harmonization of them in this song. I love how they climb upwards in the fast rhythm we've heard in the verse and in the pre-chorus as well. That da-ga-da-ga-da-ga-da, and then they explode into a melodic section, and then they come back down and build back up really spectacularly. It's one of the best solos Ghost have ever written because of the way the whole section goes on for so long, and it takes us to the final 2 choruses, the last of which has a key change that really fits. Unlike some of the key changes in Impera that I wasn't a fan of, I really like it here. The only thing I would question, similar to Peacefield, is what is this song actually about? It seems to be about a breakup, but why would Ghost be writing breakup songs? This is just not the material I come to Ghost for, and that is a sticking point for me. But fortunately, this song delivers instrumentally, and immediately afterwards, we do get an overtly satanic song in Satanized. So Satanized was the first single they released for Skeletá, and I remember being disappointed. Impera wasn't for me, and I hoped they would change course like they had from Prequelle to Impera, maybe coming back to their older sound. But this is very much in the Impera vein. Having said that, I have come to really like this song. I remember it took me a couple of months to get to that point, but I did come around on it. I have to be in the right mood to listen to this song. Unlike Peacefield and Lacrima that I really can listen to at almost any time, I have to be feeling this one when I listen to it. Lyrically, it's a satanic song about conversion to Satanism, and I really like that for Ghost. It's a bit campy, but Ghost are a bit campy. It's a little bit Infestissumam, I think. It would kind of fit on that album if you take away the synthesizers at the end. I really like the instrumentation here in this song. This is another song really made by the bass. The bass line is in triplets. It's so groovy and it brings us along for the whole ride. The verses have a gallopy feel because of the triplets, which is really fun. And the drums are doing a straight 4/4 backbeat, which is really good. So you can groove to either the 4/4 or to the triplets. The chorus I was unsure of at first, but now I really like it. I think it's very singable. I remember not being too sure of the heresy vocals in between, but I've come around on those. I think this song is so fun. The guitar work in those sections is really great, and the best part of the song for me is when the guitars play triplets and go up a semitone, accenting on the 4 and the 5 of the 6 triplets. That is the heaviest part of the song, and it is definitely the best. I really like the solo. It follows the classic Ghost solo convention, which is to start off dark and moody over the top of that semitone guitar section I was just talking about, but then evolve into a brighter section where the guitars change and give the song a development. I like the bit where the instruments disappear and we hear some acoustic plucking, and I think the ride cymbal work in the last pre-chorus. That's quite nice, and then we have the last chorus to finish us off. So I don't like this song as much as Peacefield or Lacrima, but this is still a good song for Ghost. And the next song is Guiding Lights. And it's so weird because the nosedive in quality after Satanized is insane. It feels like I'm listening now to a totally different album. I think you can put this song down as a blip for now and enjoy De Profundis Borealis next quite a bit, but after that it does get really rough for me. And so even though this song and the next song are okay, they are nowhere near the quality of the first 3 tracks. And those 3 tracks all happens to be the singles, interestingly. So I think that Ghost know that those 3 songs are the best ones, and that's why they put them first, which is quite unusual because normally throughout a Ghost album, you have good songs towards the end, like Absolution or Respite on the Spitalfields. But we'll get to what's at the end of this album later. So with this song, I do like that it is a bit of a vibe shift. I like the chorus quite a bit. The first time I hear the chorus, I'm not too sold, but by the end of the song, I do warm up to it again, so I always come around to it over the course of a listen. I'm not so sold on the outro, I think it's a bit naff, and at the end of the day, when I listen to this, I can't help but think of a song by Muse called Guiding Light, which is much better, and I'd always rather listen to that. So that's not a fair comparison because it's not the same band, but that's always what goes on in my head, and I just be thinking I could be listening to Guiding Light instead of this song. But I do think Guiding Lights is okay. Its placement in the album, though, is a bit wrong. I don't think it should be coming after Satanized. I think we should be going probably from Satanized straight into what is the next track, which is De Profundis Borealis, because this song is pretty good. I do think it definitely feels like an album track rather than a single, but it feels like it's on the same album as Peacefield. There is definitely that sonic consistency that I think was lost a bit with Guiding Lights, and this song has a great energy about it. I think the piano at the start is great, and I really like how the intro brings in the guitars and takes its time to build up. Reminds me a bit of the intro to Watcher in the Sky. And then it transitions really well into the riff. I think the galloping and riffing in the guitars is great in this song as well. And I always think of this song really in 2 sections. You've got the first 3 and a bit minutes, which always to me just feel okay. I like the energy from the constant snare pulse throughout. That's one of my favorite things about this song. And then you've got the second half, which is basically just the outro, which is fantastic and really rescues the song. It's really the highlight of this. I love that it's in 6/4, and I love the accenting as well on the last 2 beats, so on the 5 and the 6 of the first 3 bars, and then there is no accenting on the 4th bar of 6/4, so that's really cool. I love that, and I really like the fade out to the deep vocals at the end too. The song has a great ambience, the song has great melody in the guitar parts in the outro as well, and the accenting brings a heaviness to it, but overall the song never feels that heavy, it just feels very energetic. So we are 5 tracks down now, and we are halfway through the album, and so far I would say this experience is better than Impera was at this point. The only songs I really like on Impera are Respite on the Spitalfields, 20s, and Spillways is pretty good too. And I wouldn't say that any of the songs so far have reached the level of 20s or Respite. I think Peacefield and Lacrima are as good as Spillways, but we haven't reached the heights of Impera yet. But what we do have from Skeletá so far is a great deal of consistency. Everything has been pretty solid. The weakest so far has been Guiding Lights, but even that song is okay for me. I am afraid now that, with the exception of one song, the best of Skeletá is behind us, because next we have Cenotaph. Now I can totally get why you like this song, but this song throws me off immediately with the admittedly quite cool hi-hat groove, but what initially sounds like a totally boring synth melody. I don't think these things work together, and then we have the guitar coming in, and I just don't see what that adds at all. Doesn't add anything for me, and we have this mess of 3 different patterns, and we commit to that for the entire first verse. I guess it kind of morphs into something a bit more fun, but I don't like how crazy little thing called Love this sounds. I'm not crazy about that Queen song, and I don't find its influence here that interesting either. The only thing that would get me to listen to this song again would be the solo. I think it's really cool. I like the ride cymbal behind it, and I like the harmonization with the keyboard and the guitar. It's actually really good, but that is about it for this song. Next we have Meliora Amori, and just to get this out of the way, this song has synths that I cannot stand the sound of. That 80s style synth is not a sound I have ever liked. I've always thought it sounds really tacky, and then bringing it in here does not help. The main guitar riff though is quite fun. I think this album sounds a lot more glammy than Impera did. Impera sounded a lot more hard rock and still had quite a few elements of metal present. I think the metal elements are a lot less present in this album, and the guitar tone sounds very glammy, very retro, very 70s and 80s. It's a very simple riff, but it is quite fun. The solo has some really cool moments, and I'm pretty sure it directly references the song See the Light when it plays the vocal melody of All of the Demons I've Known. I actually quite like that, and I'm pretty sure it is intentional. Instrumentally, the song is enjoyable, but lyrically, this song is infantile. I don't even need to get into what this song is about. If you know, you know. And because I'm not a teenager, I don't find it funny. I don't find it cool. It's just cringe. Next, we have Marks of the Evil One, and this song, I would say it's enjoyable. I think it's perfectly fine. It never makes me feel that excited or engrossed though, and I wouldn't say it's bad. It sounds a bit like a rubbish Dance Macabre, to be honest. The main melody before the verses is quite bland. It doesn't evoke anything. It doesn't make me feel anything in particular. People say though that this album has a lot of Prequelle influence, and as someone who really loves that album, and it's my favourite Ghost album, I don't hear it at all. None of the things that make Prequelle great are in this album. Prequelle songs have a much heavier and enveloping soundscape. There are often orchestral ornaments, mainly strings, that this album trades out for cheap sounding 80s synthesizers instead. And that trade-off is really obvious in this song. What if Dance Macabre was more boring and had boring synthesizers in the background, rather than a better groove and really interesting melodies? The chorus just feels like it's trying to be a live event so hard, and it's trying to have this catchy hook, but I just don't feel it. I don't buy into the fact that this is catchy or singable or as anthemic as even other tracks on this album. This song does have a pretty cool solo though. There's a development of the main melody in there, which is really cool, and that's partially because it sounds very similar to Satan Prayer. Now, unlike See the Light being in Meliora Amori, I do think that Satan Prayer being in this song is totally coincidental. I don't think it was actually intentional, more like a happy accident. I'm not against this song. I'm not against Marks of the Evil One, but I don't think I'm for it either. It's about Satan, sure, but it's devoid of any substance. It's trying to be a crowd pleaser without being about anything. Maybe it's supposed to be fun, but how fun is it really? Doesn't make me want to dance to it, move around to it, listen to it again. And next up is Umbra. Umbra really promises more than it delivers, unfortunately. Firstly, I don't like the sound of the synths at the start. I don't like 80s music, so obviously this album is going to be a bit of a challenge for me because that 80s synth style is just not for me. But at least the progression and the layering of the synths builds up the sound quite effectively. So what I'm saying is that build up is quite good, even though I don't like those synths. And so once we're built up to a certain point, the riff comes in and it just feels like a letdown. I don't feel like the cowbell adds anything special to this song, and it just feels more like a gimmick. I don't care about the verses or pre-chorus to this song at all. I do actually quite like the choruses though. I think they're great. So we do the verse, the pre-chorus. After the second chorus we go into this instrumental bit. The hi-hat is moving us along, whilst the keyboard and guitar have a music battle. Now, I saw this song live before it was released, and this makes a lot of sense to me because I've seen it live. But there are a couple of problems. I really like this as a live element. Seeing the ghouls battle is quite entertaining, and it's cool that this live element of Ghost, which is part of their whole thing as a band, has crossed over into the studio version of the song. But I like it more in theory because the way that it's been done, I really don't like. What they did was they hard panned the guitar to the right and the keyboard is hard panned to the left ear. I'm not against that if it's only for a short period of time, but the problem we've got is that it goes on for far too long and it just makes you think, get on with it already. This is going nowhere. Because another problem with panning these instruments hard to each side is we actually lose some detail in what the instruments are doing. There are melody lines played by the keyboard especially that I cannot hear at all. I literally cannot even hear properly what the keyboard is trying to play. Because maybe they filtered the sound or decreased its volume in the mix to give more impact to the next section when all of the instruments come back and maybe they up the volume there. But whatever it was that they actually did, I think they really messed this one up because that is a cool live element and seeing it live and hearing it live is cool, but hearing it in the studio version is boring. And that's why I'm so frustrated by this song, because it's not that bad. This is the best section of the song, and yet in the studio version, I can't even hear it. And lastly, we have Excelsis. I used to not like this song. I used to think it was a worse version of Life Eternal. And whilst I'd prefer to listen to Life Eternal personally, I actually think that this song complements Life Eternal really well. I think I misunderstood this song for a long time, and I've come around on it a lot. Life Eternal is about wishing you had more time before you die. Excelsis is about acknowledging that you don't have enough time in life and you have to make the most of it. And I think these lyrics are really well written. You know, why not leave one day? Why not go on an adventure? Why not see where the rainbow ends? That thought that every child has, but never finds out what's there for whatever reason. Maybe they grow up, maybe they have a different interest. Go do the things you always wanted to do, but never did do, or simply just haven't done yet. That's what Excelsis is about, and I think that's a really great message. And it does actually tie into Ghost's satanic theme. It's a rejection of religion. Forget eternity and whatever life people say is after or before this one. Live in the moment and make the most of this life because this is the one you've got now and the only one you definitely know you're gonna have. And the final lyric of Excelsis dovetails with the final lyric of Life Eternal so beautifully. Life Eternal ends with, if you had life eternal, and Excelsis ends with, I am afraid of eternity too. That is so good. So stop worrying about what you can't control and live this life. Just such a good message. Instrumentally, it really works too. I like the 6/8 feel. I like the acoustic guitar being used here too. I love the piano being used as ornamentation in the background, especially in the final chorus. The bass is really great in this song, especially in the Excel moments. I like the organ keyboard complementing the second verse with the little rundowns. I can really see this song fitting on Prequelle. This is the only one where the Prequelle influence I can really hear being a positive, and it would fit on that album, but this is the only one that would actually do that. The rest of these songs definitely sound like Skeletá songs. I like when it goes into the bridge as well, which is a bit heavier, bringing in the distorted guitars, and I love how it transitions from that bridge into the solo, which is such a tasteful solo for the first section and for this song, and then it develops into a harmonized section which is a bit more dramatic so effectively. It's a really beautiful song, and it basically took me a full year to come around on it, but I did come around on it eventually. So those are the 10 tracks in Skeletá. Time to rank them. So at the bottom, at number 10, I'm afraid I have Cenotaph. Again, I can see why you like the song, but I don't like Crazy Little Thing Called Love that much. I'm obviously not going to like this song that much either. At number 9, it's Umbra, because I just don't really see a reason why I would listen to Umbra. What is the reason exactly? Because it has cowbell? Is that really what Ghost have been reduced to? I should want to listen to a Ghost song because of so much more rather than it has one gimmicky instrument. At number 8, we have Meliora Amori, because even though I think instrumentally it's a bit better than Marks of the Evil One, which is going to be at 7th place, I find Meliora Amori so much more cringy. It's a really hard listen for me, to be honest. Above Marks of the Evil One, at number 6, we have Guiding Lights, because the song is quite pleasant. It's okay, it doesn't really do that much, but it's not got anything in that I don't like. At number 5, we have De Profundis Borealis. This is a good, energetic song. It feels the most in line and in keeping with the first 3 singles we heard from this album. At number 4, we have Excelsis, because I think the meaning is really profound. At number 3, we have Satanized, and I think that's because with Ghost, even though I like their ballads and their slow tracks, I do like their groovy tracks a lot more. So Satanized at number 3, and it's a real toss-up between Peacefield and Lacrima at number 1. I sort of go to and fro. Today when I was re-listening to the tracks, I was going to put Lacrima at the top, and that's something I would have done if you'd have just asked me like a couple months ago, what's the best song on Skeletá? But when I actually sat down and listened to it, I did think for a bit, maybe Peacefield is a better song than Lacrima. So I think that they are equal, to be honest with you, but I'm going to put Peacefield in 2nd and Lacrima at number 1. But they are very evenly matched in terms of quality, I think. I'm putting Lacrima above just because of its heaviness, and it ties into what I like a little bit more. So that is the ranking of all of the songs on the album. I'm going to talk now just a little bit about Skeletá before I place it amongst the other albums, and then round off my album ranking for Ghost, which has been a long process. I started ranking Opus quite a while ago. Skeletá, I think, represents something quite unusual about Ghost's evolution as a band. They aren't really a metal band anymore. Some would say they never were a metal band and were always their own thing, and that was true to some extent, but they were definitely a metal band. There's just no question about that. But now it's a much more hard rock kind of sound, which is not really a problem, because I like hard rock a lot. But Skeletá is even a deviation from the hard rock sound, so far that I would say it is more of a fusion of 80s synth pop and a type of glam rock, which in this case is more like a campy hard rock. And if you're not a fan of 80s music, like me, and you're not really a fan of glam rock either, like me, then there's going to be very little in this album that is for you, and I struggle with Skeletá for that reason. But it's really clear that this album and Impera resonate really heavily with loads of people. If you look online, people love this album and they love Impera. So I'm really glad that there are people who connect so strongly to these albums, but even though they have their moments for me, due to where my tastes are, at least at this current moment, I'm just not going to be one of those people who can really connect to Impera or Skeletá, and that's fine. Ghost used to be metal, they used to be anonymous, they used to be more satanic. Today, they aren't metal, they aren't really anonymous anymore. I mean, with Perpetua's character and his costume, you can basically see all of Tobias's face, and the satanic elements are hardly present anymore. They've lost their substance if they are present, and they're nowhere near as overt as they used to be. Ghost have changed, and I just preferred what Ghost used to be more. But I think the fact that my favourite album from them is the 4th album, which is quite an experimental one compared to the rest of their albums up to that point, shows that I'm willing to move with Ghost, but there does have to be some alignment with what they're writing and my own musical tastes. And these last 2 albums just haven't been to my taste. And I've tried to be as fair as possible to give songs a chance, and I have found some songs in those albums I like, but as overall albums, they are by far my least favourite. So, at the bottom, my least favourite Ghost album, I think the toss-up between Impera and Skeletá is a hard one, but I'm going to put Impera at the bottom. Impera in 6th place, and Skeletá at 5th place. It's quite hard to weigh them up, because Impera has songs that I much prefer to Skeletá. There are no songs on Skeletá I like as much as 20s or as much as Respite on the Spitalfields. We never reach those heights, but Impera has songs that I really get confused by and cannot like. Whereas Skeletá, whilst it has songs that aren't really for me, I think there is overall a higher consistency in the album overall, and I value that. I value being able to put on an album and have a consistent listening experience. It is quite hard to listen to an album and go from a really bad song to a really great song. It really is not the kind of thing I like, and I would struggle to overlook that in Impera's case. I think Skeletá's more consistent, but I think the overall mix on Impera as an album is better than the overall mix on Skeletá. So you win some, you lose some. And at number 4, I would put Opus Eponymous. And I have to say, the difference in quality between Opus and Skeletá in terms of the songwriting is quite significant. Opus aligns with my tastes, and the style that Ghost went for in that album is so much more what I would want from Ghost. And production-wise, we take a big step up into number 3, which is Infestissumam. This album has a real identity that I connect with and I enjoy a lot. I think it's an essential Ghost album. Number 2, I'm going to put Meliora in there. I was curious to see if Meliora would take the top spot because it is most people's favourite, but I think there are so many songs on Prequelle that are phenomenal. Every single song is brilliant. And whilst Meliora has incredible songs like Cerise, Prequelle took some incredible risks, and things like Miasma are just a phenomenal song for Ghost to have written. And it's a real shame that the only songs like Miasma that exist are in Prequelle, and they didn't really do that in Impera, and any sort of attempt at an instrumental again is diminished when you think about what they made in Umbra in Skeletá. Prequelle also has Dance Macabre, which is this incredible pop rock song. It has a heavy song like Rats, which has an anthemic chorus. It's got heavy songs like Faith. I think it has everything that Meliora has to offer and more, especially in the orchestral ornamentation that they brought in as well. I just prefer this style for them. So there it is. That's my ranking. I'm going to put all these reviews into one video, and I'm going to add onto the end of that a little bit about the EPs, just a couple of comments on the ones I haven't already talked about and ranking those. And then that will be all of Ghost ranked. So like and subscribe if you made it this far and you appreciate my attempts to talk about Ghost, give the songs a shot, even if I don't like them. I hope you can appreciate the fact that I have tried to be objective about them, talk about things that I like about them, or I can see that people would like about them, even if I can't. And share the kind of songs that you like from Ghost in the comments, because I'm always interested to hear what people have to say. I like a good discussion about Ghost, as you can tell from the length of these videos. So, subscribe. So to round off Ghost finally, now that we've done all of the albums, I'm going to look at the remaining songs that are left and quickly go through the EPs and rank the tracks on those and the EPs overall as well. So the first EP is If You Have Ghost. This is a really cool EP, and I like how it feels like an extension of Infestissumam. It feels like a real bonus to the album of Infestissumam. And presumably Dave Grohl drummed on this one, or at least some tracks on this EP. That is the rumour anyway. First of all, I never really used to listen to the Ghost covers because often I hadn't heard the original songs, and many of these songs actually I still have not heard the originals of. And without knowing what a song is originally, sometimes it can be quite hard to assess the quality of a cover. So I listened to all of these for the first time about a year ago, and I'll point out where I have heard a song before and I know what the original sounds like, but for most of these, I really don't know. The first song is If You Have Ghosts, and this is a lovely song. The solo is really sweet, the strings sound great in this song, and the title really fits for the band name as well as for the name of the EP as well. This is Ghost making quite an accessible song, but it's really appealing. It's quite feel good for Ghost, but it still maintains their heaviness and a little bit of their spookiness from their earlier years. This is not a song that would fit on Infestissumam, but stylistically it sounds similar, but the vibe is completely different, and that's what I quite like about these EPs. They give Ghost space to be able to explore something similar, but completely different that doesn't have to tie into their overall theme or their overall sound. It can be an experiment that they can just do for an EP, put out there, and see if people enjoy. And the live version of this song from Right Here, Right Now is a really great recording of this cover, and I'm really glad that that exists for it, because this song deserves it, and those strings sound really good. The next track is I'm a Marionette, and this is really funny given how much Ghost are compared to ABBA. I really like how the drum fills in the verses lead up to the choruses, and I think the chord choices in the chorus are really dissonant and cool. They're very interesting, and I love the hi-hat work in the chorus as well. The solo is really great too. It's quite minimal, but I think the melody choice, whilst it is still something we've heard before in the vocal melody, it is still a bit unpredictable. It's not quite what you would expect, and it flows into a pretty heavy bridge section with that tom work on the drums, which is really cool as well. My favourite song on this EP is Crucified. It's an amazing cover. The vocal delivery in the vocals is so fun. I kind of wish we had a proper Ghost song where this level of camp in the delivery existed, with the rolling of the R's every time. I guess we did get that to some extent in Rats, but this is on a whole other level of campiness in the vocal delivery. I love the piano in this song and the way that it blends in with the other instruments and complements the overall sound. And as well as having an abrasive vocal delivery in the verses, there are also delicate moments in this song, like the final chorus. And I just think that this cover has absolutely everything, and it also fits like a glove with Ghost style already. This would not feel out of place on the Infestissumam album, in my opinion. The next track is Waiting for the Night. I feel like this song is kind of forgotten about, which is a shame, because it's probably got the heaviest tone of any of the tracks on this EP. Even though it's not my favourite on here, it's still really good because everything on this EP is high quality. And finally, it's quite cool to have a live version of Secular Haze on here as well. That's always welcome. So to quickly rank those tracks, at number 1, I would have Crucified. At number 2, If You Have Ghosts. At number 3, Waiting for the Night. And number 4, I'm a Marionette. And I guess Secular Haze would be at the bottom, but I feel like you can't really include it if you're ranking these tracks, because these 4 are covers and Secular Haze is a live version of a track. You just can't compare it. It's not the same. The next EP is Popestar. I've already talked about Square Hammer and Zenith, so I won't go into any detail on those songs here because all of that detail is in the Meliora review, but I like both of those songs. Nocturnal Me is pretty great. I think it's got great ambience. I like the 6/8 feel about it, and I like the pizzicato strings at the end as well. I think Tobias's singing is so smooth and seductive in this song, and the probably sexual lyrics really fit Ghost's theme and style. Reminds me of some of the lyrics you might have heard on Infestissumam. I Believe has great ambience too. It has this plucking instrument for the main melody. I'm not even really sure what that is, and I like how stripped back this song feels. It's definitely one of the most stripped back songs in the whole of Ghost discography. This song has great backing vocals. I like the electronic drums and the clav in the background. I love the organ as well too, that really fits with Ghost style. And before you know it, the song is over. A great track and a great opportunity for Ghost to explore something different in this EP as well. Because it's hard to imagine where this might fit on an album, but the EP allows Ghost to be able to do this and put it out there. Next is Missionary Man. This is so cheesy, and I absolutely love it. It's got a great riff, and the female backing vocals are great too. The songs that Tobias chooses to cover are so great. The lyrics fit so well with Ghost's theme. There's a part where the word money is echoed, and that is such a campy thing to do. But the way it launches into this kind of heavy riff gives me a glimpse into an alternate reality where Ghost weren't as dark and embraced the lighter tongue-in-cheek side of themselves. You could say that Ghost already did that with, certainly Skeletá, but this song is what I would want Skeletá to sound like. And I think one of the reasons I don't like Skeletá as much as I do, but I do like this, is because this sound just fits with what I like about Ghost more. And if they'd have pursued this kind of sound for what they were trying in Skeletá, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. Finally, we have Bible, and this is a really great song. This is definitely the grandest cover on Popestar. The scale and size of the choruses in particular are just enormous, and it's the perfect way to end the Popestar EP. So to rank these songs, I would have Missionary Man at number 1 at the top, and then I would have Bible in second, and then Nocturnal Me in third, and I Believe in fourth. Again, I don't really like comparing original songs with covers, but if I were to include Square Hammer and Zenith, both of those songs are better than any of the covers, in my opinion, on this EP. So they would both go above, and you can look at the Meliora ranking to see which of those I prefer. So the next EP is 7 Inches of Satanic Panic, which I've already reviewed in a separate video, so I won't go over that again. But my opinion was Future is a Foreign Land at the bottom, my least favourite. Don't really like that song. Then Mary on a Cross in second place, and then Kiss the Go-Go in first by a long way. And then the last EP is Phantomime, which came after Impera. Something very interesting about this EP is how I actually think the mix on this is slightly worse than the mix on Impera. The mix is still very good, of course, it's just that the Impera mix is the best mix of any Ghost album that I've heard. And whilst this mix is similar, it is slightly not as good. There are some general things I can say about all of the songs on this EP, which is that I think the solos sound really great. The mix on all of these songs sound brilliant. Certainly better than any of the other EPs, but in terms of the covers and this EP resonating with me, I don't really think that there's any songs on here that I gravitate towards other than Jesus He Knows Me. See No Evil is great, I think it's fun, but I don't think it's as engaging as any of the other songs on here. Jesus He Knows Me really fits with Ghost's theme, I feel. That is one of the songs I've actually heard before. I like the original and I like this cover. I actually think this cover by Ghost is better than the original, and it's always the version I would prefer to listen to. And it's far and away the best one on this EP. Hanging Around is quite fun. I think I enjoy it a bit more than See No Evil, but they sound very similar to me. Like See No Evil, Hanging Around, they're quite similar covers to me. I would struggle to distinguish that much between them. The Phantom of the Opera cover is fun. I've still never listened to the original Iron Maiden song, so I don't know how it holds up as a cover compared to that. I personally just think it's a bit long. I think it's fun and I do enjoy it for its 7 minutes, but again, I don't connect to this song. I don't know the original, so I struggle to enjoy it, I think, as much as many other people do. This is why I don't really like ranking covers or talking about the covers in much detail, because I don't know how they compare to original songs, and I don't have any connection to these songs outside of the cover. And the last track on here, We Don't Need Another Hero. This is quite good. I don't have very strong feelings on it either way. I think that the vocal melody of We Don't Need Another Hero in the chorus here is very similar to the vocal melody in Deus in Absentia's chorus. So that's an interesting observation, I think. Maybe there's no connection there, but I like to think that there is a little bit of influence spotted. But it's a bit slower, less energy, and it closes out the EP very well, so no complaints about the song. So to quickly rank these, at number 1, we have Jesus He Knows Me. At number 2, we have the Phantom of the Opera cover. At number 3, we have We Don't Need Another Hero. At number 4, we have Hanging Around. And at number 5, we have See No Evil. But the bottom 3 there, See No Evil, Hanging Around, and We Don't Need Another Hero, I feel like on my mood on a certain day, we can easily move those around to be in different places, 3, 4, or 5. Just depends on how I'm feeling that day. But those top two, number 1 and 2, they haven't changed for the whole time I've listened to this EP. So ranking these EPs is actually quite difficult because you get different things from each of them. Some have no original songs. Like If You Have Ghost has no original songs apart from a live track on there. Popestar has 2 original songs, if you include Zenith. 7 Inches of Satanic Panic is only original songs, and Phantomime has no original songs at all. All 5 tracks are covers. So it is quite hard to directly rank these, but just in terms of my overall enjoyment, and I think variety in terms of what you get, I think the best Ghost EP is Popestar. You get 2 original tracks, Square Hammer and Zenith, both of which are great. You have a great variety in covers. You have like romping and rollicking in Missionary Man. You have slower ones like Nocturnal Me and I Believe. And you have grand epic songs like Bible. This just has everything in this EP. At number 2, I would put If You Have Ghost, because I think this EP, overall, its sound is the kind of sound I like from Ghost. And it really set the template for EPs going forwards. It really proved that this EP format, releasing stuff that is very different, like an offshoot from the album, would work. And I think the sound of the covers is just a style that I really connect with. And then at number 3, I'd probably say 7 Inches of Satanic Panic, simply because Kiss the Go-Goat is a song that I like more than any track on Phantomime. But of course, it's only 3 tracks, it's only meant to be 2, it's only meant to be a 7-inch with an A-side and a B-side. So to compare it to a 5-track EP is a little bit difficult, but I'm going to put 7 Inches in 3rd place and Phantomime last in 4th, because whilst the songs sound good, and I'm sure they're great covers if you really like those original songs, I don't know those original songs, I don't connect with the covers, and the covers on their own don't stand out enough to me to really care about them apart from Jesus He Knows Me. And the fact that I know that original song and like it makes me think that that is playing into how much I like that cover on this thing. And just for completeness, to make sure all of Ghost is reviewed, I would like to mention the cover of It's a Sin, which is my favourite version of that song. Actually, I think it is the definitive version of It's a Sin. It is my favourite Ghost cover ever, and it's not on any of these EPs, so I had to mention that one. And I have also, in a YouTube short quite a while ago, ranked all of the other covers like Sympathy for the Devil, with the exception of Bohemian Rhapsody, that don't happen to be on an EP, but are live performances or covers that exist somewhere. So check that out if you want to see those opinions as well. The last thing to talk about, of course, is the live albums. Those are Ceremony and Devotion and Right Here, Right Now. So the great thing about Right Here, Right Now, compared to Ceremony and Devotion, is it has footage. It is a real shame that Ceremony and Devotion doesn't have music videos, but at least with Right Here, Right Now, we have a full movie. Unfortunately, for some of the tracks, the music videos, or the parts of the movie that you would clip, have dialogue or talking over them, which is a bit of a shame, especially in the case of Miasma. Fortunately, that song does have a proper release on the digital album, but that is quite frustrating. I mentioned how I liked it in Watcher in the Sky because I don't really like that song, but I do like Miasma, and I thought it was a great shame to talk over Miasma, even though it's an instrumental, because it is one of the best Ghost tracks. So if you did like Watcher in the Sky or any other track, it would be a shame to have it be talked over, which is an unfortunate downside to Right Here, Right Now. I don't know why they didn't just talk over some of the instrumentals that don't really matter, like Deus Culpa or Spoke Sonat or Devil Church or something. And another great thing about Right Here, Right Now is it gives us live versions of some Impera songs and also some Prequelle songs, because Prequelle came out in 2019. There were no official recordings of Prequelle songs, even though they contain, in my opinion, many of their best songs, and it's my favourite album, until 2025, which is a really long time. Nope, 2024. That's when the movie came out. I completely forgot. Wow, that was longer ago than I thought. So there are obviously some great things about Right Here, Right Now, but I think Ceremony and Devotion is the best live performance of Ghost that is recorded professionally. It's a shame that in the digital release, the track From the Pinnacle to the Pit is clipped off at the front of it is lost. However, on the physical media, on the record of it, in the vinyl, that transition from Squarehammer to Pinnacle in the Pit is completely seamless. So it does exist somewhere, it just doesn't exist in the digital one clipped on YouTube. So I don't know how they pulled a Muse Microcuts remaster error on that one, but they did. Regardless, the live mix is a lot deeper, a lot heavier, there's a lot more low end on this recording, and the set list overall is one that favours my taste a bit more. There's no Impera on it, obviously, and it's just the first 3 albums. And I think in terms of songwriting, those 3 albums overall, on average, have a much higher quality than some of their stuff that would come out later, like in albums 5 and 6. And I always thought it was a real shame that Prequelle came out just after Ceremony and Devotion, so none of those songs like Rats or Faith were recorded live in a setlist like that, which is why I am still grateful for Right Here, Right Now. It is also a shame that Right Here, Right Now does not contain, in the official release, all of the tracks that were played at this concert in 2023. There were songs from Opus like Ritual, Conclavi con Dio, Year Zero, which are essential Ghost songs that were not included in the official release. And that really annoys me. At least we can get, unofficial copies off of YouTube. And also, if they're older songs, then they at least are available from Ceremony and Devotion. You can get them from a different performance. They have been recorded before. So, that's Ghost. If you really made it this far and to the end of this, then you must be liking something, so you need to like the video, subscribe, check out any of the covers or other things that I upload, and we'll be doing Muse albums next, ready for the upcoming album, The Wow Signal. So stay tuned for that, and subscribe already.